The fifth round of the FIA's World Championship should have taken place over there, in Canada. But various problems with sponsors' contracts and the circuit's facilities meant that the fifth round instead became this race, here in Detroit, the only Grand Prix on the North American continent in 1987. Detroit, of course, is the centre of the American automobile industry, an industry which is not only closely monitored as an indicator of the American economy as a whole, but which has been very much responsible for the development of this huge country. America is as proud of its automobile heritage as it is of virtually any other aspect of its history. In Grand Prix terms, the American automobile industry has only dabbled in the World Championship. That is, apart from Ford, whose small, early investment in the Cosworth engine in the 60s reaped huge rewards and has recently been followed up by a turbo engine program. Although Americans know and understand their domestic Indy racing series, they find Grand Prix racing much more international, and therefore somewhat more removed and so slightly less comprehensible. There are, however, indications that interest is on the increase. Chrysler, through the recent acquisition of Lamborghini, are soon to become involved with a Formula One engine program. With the increased American interest in the series, there is every indication that there will soon be another Grand Prix on the North American continent. As the field arrives in Detroit for this fifth round of the FIA's World Championship, reigning champion Frenchman Alain Prost leads the series with 18 points, including 9 from a single win in Belgium. Ayrton Senna is second with 15 points. Discussing Honda power with Edsel Ford, Stefan Johansson is third with 13 points, his fine finishing record ruined by retirement in Monaco. Nelson Piquet is fourth with 12 points, but he's not happy to be driving on a bumpy street circuit in spite of a previous win here. Teammate Nigel Mansell is looking to improve on his 10 points. He hasn't finished in the last 2 races. Michele Alboreto has 8 points and is hoping to break Ferrari's bleak run of poor results. Teammate Gerhard Berger hopes he can beat Alboreto to Ferrari's first victory in 2 years. He lies 7th in the championship with 6 points. 8th is Brabham's Andrea de Cesaris with 4 points from his single third place in Belgium. Eddie Cheever has 3 points from 4th in Belgium, but needs to find reliability for regular point scores. Satoru Nakajima also has 3 points and is the only driver to have finished every race this year. Thierry Boutsen has 2 points, but the Benetton Ford driver needs to find reliability to satisfy his engine suppliers here in Motown. Martin Brundle also has 2 points with the Zaxpeed, and he is also hoping to find some reliability. Jonathan Palmer wants to scoop more points with the normally aspirated Tyrrell before racing on faster circuits. René Arnoux has just a single point and hopes that new bodywork will change the fortunes of the Ligier team. March's Ivan Capelli, like Palmer, hopes that he can take another point in Detroit. The drivers and teams tackled a weekend of changeable weather in Detroit. Friday was hot, Saturday morning was wet, final qualifying just dry enough to show some improvements in times. But drivers and teams had already lost some useful practice time. They were tackling one of the least popular tracks on the calendar. Traditionally bumpy, it had been resurfaced, but that, said Martin Brundle, didn't necessarily mean that the track was any flatter. There were slight variations to the track. 2 corners were slightly sharper than before, and the back straight was now the bumpiest part of the circuit. Some drivers were diplomatically complimentary about the improvements that had been made, but others were less bashful in making their feelings well known. However, wet or dry, there was just one man to beat in Detroit, as there had been in Monaco, Williams Honda driver Nigel Mansell. Only a spin and 5th gear broken on Detroit's notorious bumps upset his rhythm. Otherwise, the Englishman was utterly determined and perfectly happy, one of the few drivers to admit that he was glad to be racing in Detroit. However, he did suffer a little cramp in his right leg during the final qualifying session. Monaco winner Ayrton Senna was hoping for a double, both in the World Championship and in Detroit. No one had ever won 2 Detroit Grand Prix before.
Ayrton, you've had a lot of success on this circuit and a lot of success recently. How do you rate your chances for this race?
I hope we have a good car for tomorrow, and not only fast but constant and strong, reliable, and we can have a good race.
Now, it seems possible that it could be wet tomorrow. Is that going to be to your advantage or disadvantage?
I think it's going to be the same. Under the circumstances and the characteristics of the circuit and our car this year, I think it's just going to be more dangerous for the visibility and the slippery conditions, but in terms of technicalities, about the same.
How much has the circuit changed this year for you?
A bit less bumpy over here at the pits, and the rest is the same, so not much.
Does it feel more comfortable though with the active suspension?
Last year was very hard. This year it still remains hard because we are going faster with more power, so I believe should be easier with active suspension than with the normal one, but we are not here to try one and the other to see how much is the difference, but I believe the active one should make it a bit easier for the driver.
What about with Honda Power? How does that feel?
Very powerful.
Better than Renault for this circuit? I mean, does it better power band than Renault?
No, in this circuit, not much difference because of drivability. But in reliability and consistent, yes, it's a better engine for this circuit. In other circuits where you can use more the power, it is a superior engine. In the circuits where you have fuel consumption problems also, it's a superior engine. Here you don't have fuel consumption problems, you don't have so much use for so much power, so it comes closer, but it is stronger in reliability anyway.
And how important to have a good grid position here?
As far as you are, so you are in the first row, you're okay. It doesn't matter first or second because it's such a long race and so hard on the car that if you are clear of accidents at the first corner and then running with the first cars during the race, everything can happen.
Having won here last year and also having won the last race, are you very confident?
We haven't even started the race, so you have to wait a lot before you can feel very confident.
Fellow Brazilian Nelson Piquet won the Detroit Grand-Prix back in 1984, driving a Brabham BMW, but he doesn't particularly enjoy Motown's Grand Prix circuit. Like Williams Honda teammate Nigel Mansell, he also broke a gear on the bumps, but wound up third quickest in spite of rubbing off his nose cone against one of Detroit's unforgiving concrete retaining walls. A delighted fourth was Thierry Boutsen in the Benetton, its Ford engine now giving much better throttle response in this capital of automotive industry. Fourth on the grid alone would impress the giants of the business. However, Boutsen suffered a broken drive shaft and his fastest lap came in spite of a variety of problems, including a misfire and a stiff gearbox. World Championship leader Alain Prost was fifth on the grid, in spite of a variety of problems. What had gone wrong with the reigning world champion's McLaren tag?
Typically Detroit problem and no grip and bad balance, especially over bumps. My car doesn't like bumps at all, and because of that, and because also this year we have only one kind of Goodyear tire, which I think suit a little bit better the Williams than us. I think we would need a softer campaign for this, especially for this track. So we're not complaining about that, and it's just an explanation. So it's difficult to avoid this problem, and we have no grip, and after 2 or 3 laps we have even less grip all the time because we can't get the tires working well on our car, and the only way we could be quicker today was to put much more fuel during qualifying, and that means more weight on the car, and we could get the tires a little bit warmer and working better.
So for once we may actually see you going faster during the early laps because your car may be better during the early laps.
Yes, and I mean I went much faster at the end, but it was really difficult, and I had the yellow flag too. I think I could have been a little bit quicker, but in any case I cannot be as quick than both Williams and Senna. But I mean, it's already a good performance, I think. You know, we are quite happy to be fifth on the grid on this track. It's very good.
So is it going to be a great disadvantage being back in fifth?
As I said, I could not do the pole anywhere. So being fifth, I could have been fourth, which is good. But I think it's not. It's a big disadvantage to win the race if the drivers on front have no mechanical problem. But I don't think I'm competitive to beat them, to overtake them and just lead the race. You know, I can't do that. So being fourth or fifth doesn't make a big difference. The only thing I have to do is just stay on the road and wait and try to get maybe 4 points.
So that's what you're aiming at, is literally not necessarily racing for the lead, but hoping for a good finish.
If I can overtake them, why not? I mean, you know, it's going to be a strange race if it's hot, because we all have problems with rear tires, because we have such big power at the moment that we can't put all the power on the ground, and we make the rear tires wheel spinning a lot. And we are going to stop once, maybe twice for tires, and there's no point to rush on the lead, and I just wait and I just see what happens. You know, if my car is very quick, I try to do the best, but I know it's going to be difficult, and physically very difficult, very tiring.
The usual Alain Prost waiting game.
Yes, but on this track it's going to be more difficult for me. That's a problem. I know that.
What about brakes? Do you have any problems with brakes at all?
You know, when you have no grip, as I had before, and you have problems with brakes. So I think my problems will be even worse than the other cars.
Eddie Cheever was superb at this circuit on his only Formula One outing last year. This year, he couldn't get the Arrow's handling sorted out to his liking. But in the end, he went just as hard as he could, ignoring his car's poor turn-in on the sharp corners, and ended up setting 6th fastest time, thrilling local sponsors US F&G. However, he was pleased that he didn't have to drive like that every day of the week. Michele Alboreto looked good at various points during the weekend, but both he and Ferrari teammate Gerhard Berger suffered various problems during the final and all-important qualifying session. In Michele's case, his Ferrari's V6 engine went on to 5 cylinders, although earlier he had had a gearbox problem. The 1983 winner wound up 7th on the grid. Eighth was the second of the Benetton Fords, that of Teo Fabi. Detroit isn't really the little Italian's favourite kind of circuit, and he also had his fair share of problems as well, with a leaking radiator and later a puncture. Finally, he suffered badly from the traffic around the Detroit circuit, never getting a clear lap in which to set a quick time. Riccardo Patrese was 9th in the Brabham BMW after a relatively problem-free 2 days of practice. He had a spin in the first session of practice, but otherwise worked hard until he clipped a barrier in the final qualifying session and broke a front upright. Patrese had finished 6th in the Brabham the previous year and was hopeful of repeating that feat in 1987. Derek Warwick was only 10th on the grid in the second Arrows, after practice sessions of mixed fortunes. But he was second fastest in the damp race morning warm-up.
Derek, it's been a pretty up-and-down weekend for you, really, hasn't it? What's been going on?
Well, the first day everything was going all right. We were 6th and 7th and fairly happy. We had a lot of work to do on the car. And then on Saturday morning it rained and put us out of our stride a little bit, and we had to gamble. Well, I gambled for a setup in the afternoon that I don't think was completely right. And then when the track was at its quickest at the end of the session, I had an engine failure. So I wasn't running when the track was quick, and we're not talking about little differences, we're talking about big differences of a second. So I dropped from 6th down to 10th.
And then also you weren't well the first day.
Well, I got some sort of bug, some sort of mild food poisoning or something. And when I was in the car on Friday, I could drive 2 laps and then the head would all go woozy and I'd have to slow down for a lap, sort of get everything into gear again, and then go for it. So it wasn't ideal, so I was really looking forward to Saturday, and I felt a lot better on Saturday, and today I feel a lot better again.
And now on race day today, all of a sudden you're second quickest.
Well, you know, I mean, it's a bit of a lottery out there this morning with the wet conditions. We didn't do much running, and the car is diabolical, so to end up second's a bit of a gift, really, I think.
Which sort of conditions would you prefer for a race?
You got to have dry. Around a street circuit like this is too much of a lottery. You know, I mean, it's so easy to spin, to lock a brake up, to touch wheels, not to see anything. I'm 10th on the grid, so I'm going to have a lot of spray in front of me, so for sure I want dry.
Which do you think the car is best suited for?
Definitely the dry. You know, the Megatron engine is not really suited to wet conditions. It's a little bit violent in the way that the power comes in. Although we have good power, really strong power, it comes in very violently. So for a street circuit, it's not ideal, and for wet conditions, it's even worse.
The team really seems to be coming on song now. The reliability has been sorted out, at least in practice. What do you reckon it's capable of in a race like this?
Well, you know, since USF&G have come into the team on a stronger level, it's made such a difference to the team. John Smith has sort of directed the team now, and it's helping the team 100%. And a race like this, again, is a bit of a lottery, but I think, you know, I think Arrows now have made a point that we now race for the top 6, not inherit the top 6, and maybe we can run on the rostrum. You know, every single Grand Prix this year we've run 4th and 5th, and I think that puts us in good stead for here.
Like Alain Prost, Stefan Johansson was also a casualty of the McLaren malaise, finding it exceptionally difficult to set up the car to his liking throughout the 2 days, with interruptions for rain, of course. Finally, he ended up on the 6th row of the grid. Disappointing for the Swedish driver. He shared the row with Ferrari driver Gerhard Berger, who, like teammate Alboreto, had been much higher on the grid, but twice hit the wall and damaged his rear wing. Ferrari were experimenting with differentials and carbon fiber clutches, while the computerized management system had been reprogrammed. After his 5th place in Monaco, Jonathan Palmer and team boss Ken Tyrrell were hopeful of yet more points around the streets of Detroit, and things looked good with both cars on the 7th row of the grid. Michele Alboreto drove a Cosworth-powered Tyrrell to claim the most recent victory for a normally aspirated car around this circuit in 1983. Reinforcing the Tyrrell effort was Philippe Streff in the 2nd car, alongside his teammate. Streff was eager not to continue a string of accidents in recent races. His only problem in practice was poor throttle response, but otherwise the Tyrrells were reliable. After various problems, Martin Brundle eventually wound up on row 8. Following previous promising performances, was this still one of his favourite circuits?
Yeah, I've always gone quite well. I quite like street circuits. I like the aggressive sort of 90-degree turns. But I was 2nd in the first year I was here, running 4th the 2nd year until I had an incident with the back marker. Bad luck last year, I only did 15 laps and a little tuppenny-halfpenny electrical part failed. But otherwise, I've always quite enjoyed myself here.
How do you find the track this year? Has it changed much?
Yeah, street circuits seem to change every year. They seem to assemble them slightly differently. It's a bit tighter on turn 3, I call it. I think they call it turn 4. The pit straight's better. They said they were going to resurface it, but I guess they didn't say they were going to make it flat. It seems that in the first turn it's getting bumpier than ever, but I mean, that's street circuit racing, and we have to supposed to be the best drivers in the world. We should be able to drive around these problems.
Now, you've always driven a normally aspirated car here. How do you feel about driving a turbo car here?
I drove a turbo here last year, actually, but I quite enjoy driving the normally aspirated cars around here. They're really made for this type of track. A turbo car, especially a 4-cylinder turbo with only one turbocharger, they're a bit slow coming away from the corner till we build up turbo boost, and then they come in like a switch with about 900 horsepower and spins the wheels, so they're not really ideal, to say the least.
Completely different, in fact, even from this year to last year, 4-cylinder to V6.
That's right, yeah, the 4-cylinder is a more difficult turbo to drive, particularly around a street circuit.
So you'll be looking forward to getting back into a normally aspirated in the future?
I don't really care what I get into, Bob, as long as it'll win a Grand Prix.
OK. How have things gone so far this weekend?
Good, until when it really counted in the first qualifying session, when a fuel line split and set fire to the engine bay. So we're 21st on the grid. If it's going to rain for the race, then I'd like to get up this afternoon, get up at least 7 or 8 places on that. So car went a lot better in the unofficial this morning, so I'm a good chance of doing that.
Which would you prefer, wet or dry?
I think wet.
Really? Why's that?
Because I can't win this race in the dry. We can't match the Williams Hondas and the Lotus and that sort of thing. So I quite enjoyed the wet, drive racing in the wet. So I could actually surprise a few people there. And it throws in another unknown factor, which, you know, I think I'm in a good position to take advantage of.
So you would say the wet was a bit of an equaliser?
It tends to be.
But it also to an advantage of normally aspirated?
Yeah, that's the point. No, I don't think so necessarily. In the wet this morning we were in the top 5 most of the time, top 5 fastest, so I don't think it really matters too much in that. In fact, our car's quite good in the rain.
Christian Danner sat beside his Zakspeed teammate Brundle on row 8, following an engine blow-up on Friday. Otherwise, he was looking forward to a good, clean race to erase the memory of his Monaco disqualification. Andrea de Cesaris had great difficulty staying away from the walls, making contact on a number of occasions and keeping the Brabham BMW mechanics busy as they put his car back together again. He also had an engine blow-up and later a collision with Satoru Nakajima. Alessandro Nannini would start from row 9 alongside de Cesaris, although early performances suggested he might be even higher on the grid. However, a broken gearbox in the final session dropped the Minardi driver to 18th spot. Arcella driver Alex Caffey was seeing Detroit for the first time, but ended up a promising 19th on the grid in spite of a fire in the Alfa Romeo engine department on Friday afternoon. Philippe Alliot crashed on cold tyres on Friday afternoon, but eventually wound up 20th on the grid in the Lola, third of the normally aspirated runners. René Arnoux was only 21st on the grid in the Megatron-engined Ligier, in spite of new rear bodywork. But he had a spin in the wet and complained of a lack of grip all weekend. Splitting the two Ligiers was Ivan Capelli's March, both driver and team making their first appearance in Detroit. Severe overheating upset their debut session on Friday morning. Piercarlo Ghinzani had a miserable weekend, with a succession of engine problems on Friday and then electrical problems on Saturday, which forced him into the spare car. And that car...
At the 27 Grand Prix in 99 starts. But the old order changes. As the 1987 season dawned, Stewart's record of 27 was in jeopardy. At the opening competition in Brazil, France's favorite, Alain Prost, won to bring his career victory total to 26. The Grand Prix circus then moved across the Atlantic to the tiny principality of San Marino in northern Italy. But mechanical trouble, the ever-present worry of Grand Prix drivers, forced Prost out of the race early and made it a cakewalk for Britain's #1 driver, Nigel Mansell. 2 weeks later, in the World War II battleground of the Ardennes, Prost was at the top of his form and came home a winner in the Belgian Grand Prix, equaling Stewart's mark of 27. Then it was on to the Riviera and Monte Carlo, Prost's private property for 3 straight years. But mechanical gremlins left him ninth, as Brazilian Bullet Ayrton Senna was the driver who was entertained in the Royal Box by the Prince of Monaco. The motorized troubadours again crossed the Atlantic for their only race in North America, as Prost's quest for victory continues in a race he's never won. Through the winding streets of Motown, today, it's the 6th annual Detroit Grand Prix. On an on again, off again, rainy day in Detroit. Thousands of spectators are here for the Grand Prix, hoping the rain holds off for the race itself. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Economaki, wondering what kind of a track we're going to have for this important auto race, the only Formula One competition in North America, the Canadian round having been canceled. Despite the condition of the track, the big story today is whether or not the little Frenchman, Alain Prost, who's starting in the third row, can win today, and in so doing, eclipse the record set by the great Jackie Stewart. He matched that record in Belgium, and Jackie Stewart, the wee Scot, is now with Ken Squire, who'll call the race for us today.
Jackie, you traveled to 99 races to establish that mark of 27 wins, and now you're back on the circuit with a different purpose.
Well, now it's to keep an eye on Alain Prost, who obviously today could break that record and have 28 Grand Prix victories. He's a very good man to do the record, Ken. He's the best Grand Prix driver in the world today, maybe the best race driver in the world, and if he gets it, then I'll be the first to want to shake his hand. I only hope that he feels it's such an honor as I felt when I beat Fangio and Jim Clark's records, because it meant so much to me.
Let's go back to 1973 and that last win, the Nürburgring in Germany, when Jackie Stewart, driving for Team Tyrrell, came across the line in first place. Teammate Francois Sever in second that day. Jackie Ickx was third. And let's recall one more time why you at 34 at that time, still very much in your prime, elected to step away.
Well, I think I was pretty burned out as an individual. I just had enough. But then Francois got killed at the Grand Prix in Watkins Glen just before on the qualifying day. And I suppose that put the final cap on it in a way. He was a good close friend. I thought he would be the next world champion, frankly, because I knew I was going to retire. But I think the sport had done a lot to me, had given me a lot, but also had taken a lot away from me in the sense of private time. And I just was burned out, Ken, really.
Thank you very much. Three-time world champion Jackie Stewart. The man standing by with the defending world champion and a chance to break Stewart's mark today, Alain Prost, is down on pit road, and we'll update that story with my colleague Dave Despain.
Thank you, Ken. As Alain Prost confronts this possible rendezvous with history, he is not a happy man. The French world champion, the first Frenchman to win that title, is a perfectionist who fears today that perfection is beyond his grasp. There is the matter of the engine. The race motor broke last night. The crew worked until 4 a.m. replacing it. There is the weather. Critical chassis adjustments have been changed and changed again as we've gone from wet to dry. At the very last possible moment, a shower of fuel out of the engine, a last-minute problem that has just now been solved. And so, Alain Prost, as he awaits the start of this race, has asked us not to be interviewed. He is alone with his crew, alone with his thoughts. Let's go to Chris Economaki.
I'm here with Nigel Mansell, Britain's #1 driver. Nigel, what about the track conditions? What kind of a start will we see?
Well, hopefully a good one now, because God bless America, the sun's coming out.
Okay. With what's gone past this season, would you rather have somebody alongside of you in the front row than Ayrton Senna, Nigel?
Makes no difference, really. I mean, all the drivers up and down the pit lane are all good professional drivers.
Well, you look intense. We hope you have a great drive. Thanks very much for chatting with us. And now up to Ken Squire in the booth. Thanks.
Our co-driver for our 18-camera live telecast today, fresh from Le Mans, our good friend David Hobbs. And David, as you look at this 2.5-mile, 20-turn track for 2 hours, it makes one think of a ski slalom run at 85 miles per hour with 1,000 gates.
Well, it certainly is like a ski slalom, Ken, but a very, very painful one, of course, if you miss one of those gates. Yes, 1,000 gates in under 2 hours. But, of course, you've got the added complication of having to change gear in between those gates about 3,000 times, 3,500 times. Obviously, as well as that, of course, you've got 26 other runners in there, some of whom are going a lot slower than you, some of whom are going faster. And so one way or another, it's going to be a pretty dodgy afternoon. The weather this morning was very bad during their warm-up. It was wet and incredibly slippery through the streets of Detroit, as the car number, as we see the Data General car there proving down at the Atwater Tunnel. But it looks as if it's going to be dry and sunny this afternoon. Obviously, the worst conditions would be if they had a light shower just about halfway through, and that would get everybody's attention really tuned in. But anyway, we're going to go back down to Eddie Cheever,
who is standing by with Dave Despain.
Indeed, the only American in the race this afternoon, a man who finished second here in 1982, Eddie Cheever. Is this the day you improve that position by one?
I sure hope it is. The USF&G Aeros is running well. We ran quite well in qualifying. It's going to be a very difficult race. The weather conditions are a bit of a hazard because it sprinkles with a bit of rain now and then, so it's very difficult when you're running on slick tires. I think we have a good chance of finishing the top 3. I think that would be a very positive result for us.
Your team has been called the most improved in Formula One this year. Do you share that optimism about the future of this team?
Absolutely. I mean, the backing we've had from USF&G has made a lot of difference. We're now capable of programming farther ahead than they have done in the past. The Megatron engine is running well. We have a lot of work to do on the fuel consumption. This is one of those races where fuel consumption is not that important. Today's an important day for us.
26 international stars will go to the line. America's favorite son, Eddie Cheever, comes from 6th. Ken?
We'll be back with the starting lineup shortly, as today CBS brings you the highest level of technology in any sport, face to face with the highest level of danger. Ladies and gentlemen, the starting lineup for the 1987 Detroit Grand Prix. On the pole, the 1986 world title runner-up from Great Britain in a Honda powered.
Another great win to another great sportsman, and Derek Bell and Hans Stuck, of course, coming through and winning Le Mans. At the moment, we're still waiting for the boys in Detroit to get ready. As a matter of fact, today dawned with steady, heavy rain drenching the circuit, accompanied by occasional thunderstorms. And this saw the teams were resorting to wet tires. Consequently, lap times fell as the cars splashed around the Riverside circuit. Now, earlier this morning in the warm-up, the likes of Capelli, Alio, and Palmer posted some very, very good times. But as the line dried, the order settled back to near normality. And as a matter of fact, some of the cars were circulating at something like 38 seconds a lap slower than the times that they posted in dry practice. I'd say that if it does start to rain, according to some of the experts, that you'll have to look at the likes of Warwick, Palmer, and possibly even Nannini, because they were really coming through very, very strong. A lot of criticism, as a matter of fact, from some of the drivers, headed up, as a matter of fact, by the current dual world champion, Alain Prost, about the circuit. They don't like all the block walls, the big cement surrounds. They still prefer the layout in Adelaide, for instance, which has certainly been able to show Detroit how to run a Grand Prix of this type. But of course, Johansson, he, as Prost's teammate, was quite happy with the circuit, but not quite as happy with his old team Ferrari, because he was saying how it was great to be with a McLaren team, because he said it was a little bit more professional. John Barnard, who's taken over Ferrari, ex-McLaren, wasn't too happy at that press conference, because he was seen to sort of hide his head there for a while. But he's trying at this moment to get Ferrari in order. Ferrari, by the way, on the grid, Michele Alboreto posted 7th fastest time, and Gerhard Berger is down in 12th position. Teo Fabi for Benetton, 8th. Riccardo Patrese for Brabham, 9th. Derek Warwick for Arrows, 10th. Stefan Johansson for McLaren, 11th. Jonathan Palmer for Tyrrell, 13. And Philippe Streiff for Tyrrell, he is on 14th position. And let's hope that the boys at Tyrrell will be able to get it together after having a couple of bad races. Nakajima, it's quite interesting, Nakajima, who's way down on the circuit, as a matter of fact, is 8 seconds a lap slower than his teammate Ayrton Senna. Ayrton Senna at the moment is definitely the guy to watch on this circuit, because Mansell has to come in favourite, but Ayrton Senna is the defending champion, the 1986 champion. And at the moment, the Camel Lotus team seem to be getting the suspension working pretty well. And judging by that Monaco performance of a couple of weeks ago, according to Stefan Johansson, they should be very, very strong competition here at Detroit. We were talking to Alain Prost during the week, and he said that the demands on the car and the driver here at Detroit are very similar to those at Monaco. Also, the average lap speeds are almost as slow, and it's not the kind of place with the strong aerodynamics of cars such as McLaren, and even you're looking at Ferrari, can be of great assistance when you look at other tracks, the faster tracks like Spa and Zandvoort. Alain Prost, well, he failed to finish in the Monaco Grand Prix, but we can assure you that there is one man who'll be trying very, very hard. At the moment, the point separation at the top of the World Championship is only 3 separating the top 2 drivers. Prost at the moment is on 18, Senna on 15, Johansson on 13, Piquet on 12, Mansell, he's down there on 10, Alboreto on 8, Berger on 6, De Cesaris on 4, and Nakajima and Cheever down on 3. Boutsen, Brundle, Palmer 2, Arnoux and Capelli on 1. And in the Constructors' Championship, to bring you up to date, as we're going around the circuit, you'll see what the drivers are facing. As Alain Prost said, you know, you've got to be careful of these brick walls or these concrete slabs. They just close in on top of you. But McLaren at the moment, of course, the Prost team, 31 points. Williams Honda on 22. Lotus Honda on 18. Ferrari 14. Brabham BMW 4. Arrows Megatron 3. Zaxbyed, Tyrrell Ford, and Benetton Ford on 2. Marsh Ford and Ligier Megaton on 1. The Jim Clark Trophy, which, of course, as you know, we've got 2 races in one here for the normally aspirated cars, meaning to say the average carburetor job, in other words. The Jim Clark Trophy points, Streif, Palmer, Fabre, Allier and Capelli are the ones doing battle. And in the Colin Chapman Trophy, of course, the trophy named after the famous Lotus man, the late Colin Chapman, Tyrrell Ford on 39, AGS Ford on 16, Bowler Ford on 15, and Marsh Ford on 6th. And looking at the circuit at the moment, is definitely dry. The earlier reports we had was that that anything could happen here. According to some of the locals, it may even start to rain. The Ren Centre, which is the famous large complex that you'll see on your screen predominating the race, as you'll see them coming into the straight, was actually shrouded in misty cloud. And looking at the pics earlier on, it was still shrouded with that cloud, and the boats out there on the Michigan River were bobbing up and down. You can just see that little bit of fog there in the background there. And some of the locals say that it could rain, but, well, at the moment, as you can see, it's a very, very dry line. If rain does set in, we'll be looking at cars like Lola and Tyrrell, Marsh, to come up very high in the results. So the cars are ready. That's the Ren Centre. Our commentators are ready. And so to Detroit, Motown, USA, for the running of the Detroit Grand Prix, Murray Walker and James Hunt.
Quite a problem with tyres in this race, with the track being more abrasive, having been washed by rain overnight, and it was wet, damp this morning when the cars went out for the warm-up. And this would give further advantage to the normally aspirated 3.5-litre cars, headed by Jonathan Palmer, who did so well in Monaco at the last race, also on streets, because they would have to make less tyre stops. They're much easier on the tyres than the heavier turbo cars. So that's a view from Nakajima's Lotus as they go around on the warm-up pace lap. It really is very tight and twisty indeed here in Detroit. Senna had a bit of trouble with his car this morning in the warm-up, but that was clutch trouble, and we gather that is all okay. The McLaren team seem to have lost their way a little bit. They didn't really get their car right at Monaco, and they've been struggling once again here. Fine performance by Eddie Cheever in the improving Arrows team, qualifying 6th fastest. Just coming round now. Mansell will be slowing them down, try and bunch them up. He doesn't have to wait too long stationary with the car in gear. You can see there just how humid it is. Humidity 95%.
Well, there's Nelson Piquet coming up in 3rd position. Boutsen 4th on the grid. Alain Prost is 5th. There's Eddie Cheever 6th and Alboreto 7th. Incidentally, the Benettons have got the new Ford engine in which the throttle response is much better than it has been previously, and that's the reason why Boutsen has been able to qualify so well. And Teo Fabi was much better in this morning's warm-up than he was in qualifying. In qualifying, the Italian in the Benetton was only in 8th position. Now Nakajima will be riding with him, hopefully. I say hopefully, because it depends on the producer showing us the pictures. Nakajima is only 24th on the grid. It's his first visit to Detroit, but he was 9th fastest in the warm-up. Already then, and away they go. A marvellous start by Nigel Mansell with Senna 2nd, Piquet in 3rd position. Eddie Cheever has come up, the two Benettons absolutely together. It's a clean start. Nakajima away last, the distinctive yellow Lotus in last position. And here is Nakajima. Now we're riding with the Japanese driver, and look at the way he's already passing people straight through the middle of two cars there.
That was, he left his braking too late. He's having a lot of trouble, Nakajima. Super clever driving. He rode over somebody else's wheel there, but it doesn't appear to have damaged his suspension. Well, certainly an exciting close-up view, and there he goes. And that's the end of Nakajima. So, bang into the wall, and we had a pretty good view of a pretty undistinguished driving performance, quite honestly, there.
Yes, Nakajima lost it, over-enthusiastic. He doesn't seem to have damaged the car from the way he and we are restarting, but already the leaders are bearing down on the Japanese driver. And let's have a replay as you see the car of Pascal Fabre passing him there, and that's an indication of the fact that the Japanese driver was in real trouble as he accelerates away, overdoes things. You can see the car is sideways to the circuit now, the wheel stationary. I don't think he actually touched the wall at all. And as James said, there is Nakajima spinning off, and it was one of the Minardis, but at the end of the first lap, it's Nigel Mansell leading. And if he's got a clear circuit, Senna behind him, Piquet in third position, and Eddie Cheever is fourth in the Arrows. Coming through in fifth position is Boutsen, then Michele Alboreto, and down to seventh place goes Alain Prost.
Yes, Mansell and Senna now just opening a gap, a little bit of a gap, but that was a fine example that we saw from Nakajima on how not to drive the first lap of a Grand Prix. He was pushing it too hard and getting tangled up with other cars. A good example of how to drive one in midfield was shown by Alain Prost, who you might have noticed that the first couple of corners was being very cautious, letting cars go past him, because this is a very long race. It'll go the full 2 hours, and there'll be a lot of retirements, and these walls are very unforgiving indeed.
Lap 2, and already it is again a race between Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna, with Nelson Piquet in the background. Piquet feeling much better here at Detroit than he did at Monaco. He doesn't like Detroit because it's a street circuit any more than he likes Monaco, but he finished well up in the Principality in second position, and he could do the same thing again here. But Mansell, who really is in magnificent form this year, has got what he wants, a cushion between himself and Ayrton Senna second. Here is Piquet in third place, Eddie Cheever in the Arrows, reproducing the superb form that he showed in Monaco, because in fourth place the American is closing up on Nelson Piquet as they go into the tunnel at the end of the second lap, with Thierry Boutsen behind him in fourth position. And going well too is Theo Fabi. So at the end of the second lap, in the lead, Nigel Mansell, there he is. Then in second place, Ayrton Senna. Third is Nelson Piquet. In fourth position is Eddie Cheever. Fifth is Thierry Boutsen. And in sixth place, believe it or not, is Alex Caffey, which I find hard to believe. So, Mansell, he's just got to keep going now, smoothly and carefully, watching that he doesn't clip any of the walls, watching for Senna in his mirrors. But this is what happened at Monaco, and you'll remember that Nigel Mansell went out with a fiddling problem, a fractured turbo pipe.
Yes, of course, that an occupational hazard of motor racing. These cars do break down from time to time. And Mansell right now will be looking to get himself played into a good rhythm. He won't be really pushing to get away in a big hurry from Senna. He'd like to see that gap steadily extending, but more than anything, he'll be driving with some care, trying to keep it all smooth. And now you see Cheever's really putting the pressure on Nelson Piquet now. And he's locking his brakes, but he made it just about. So Eddie Cheever goes through into third place.
Yes, and it's Alboreto in sixth position, not Caffey. I found that hard to believe, and I was right. And there was the Italian, but Eddie Cheever, superb. He made a terrific name for himself here at Detroit last year when he had his one drive in the Haas Lola. So there's Cheever, Piquet, and Boutsen is coming up and taking Alboreto. So Boutsen, Fabi moves up. Yes, it's Teo Fabi. And so Nigel Mansell leading, Alboreto retaking that place. There was Boutsen, just ahead of Berger, and I do believe that Nelson Piquet was holding the traffic up.
Yes, Piquet in the pits. Nelson Piquet's got some sort of trouble. Pitting very early on, out he comes again. Was that a tyre stop already? You couldn't see what they were doing, too many people in the way, but certainly he was causing quite a traffic jam behind him, and it's really quite hectic amongst that big group scrapping away for 4th place and downwards.
We can't see the pits from here, but I suspect that Nelson Piquet came in to have something snatched out of the side pod, some rubbish in the side pod, which would have been blocking the radiator. But there is Ayrton Senna. You can see now the gap between, and off spins the Osella there. That is the Osella of Alex Caffey. Are they going to restart it? But now Eddie Cheever, who's forced his way up into 3rd position past Nelson Piquet, is having the audacity to close on Ayrton Senna in 2nd place. So the turbocharged Megatron engine in the Arrows is doing a terrific job. Piquet got away from the pits in 18th position. There he is. We are on lap 4, and it is Nigel Mansell leading there with sparks striking as he comes out of the Goodyear tunnel. There is Senna in 2nd position. And you can see the gap. It's enough. It's more than enough for Nigel Mansell. But now let's watch them as they come through the chicane. Mansell leading. Senna in 2nd place. Then it should be the white arrows of Eddie Cheever. But we stay with Ayrton Senna and now with Nigel Mansell on lap 5 in the 63-lap race. Mansell, even at this stage, has just got to keep going.
Yes, he's looking pretty comfortable. He's starting just to ease away from Ayrton Senna a little bit, which will be just what he wants to see in his mirrors. Diminishing Lotus behind him. He'll still be trying to set his rhythm. But we are expecting quite a lot of tyre trouble in this race. It's a very abrasive circuit. And just having a look at Cheever's tyres, he looks to be graining a little bit to me, so a bit of tyre nursing could pay quite good dividends later in the race.
And you look at Alboreto being followed by Prost. Alboreto, who is in 6th position, but there is Cheever, Boutsen, Alboreto, Prost. There is Boutsen, and here is Cheever in 3rd position. And you can see that Teo Fabi in the green Benetton with the new Ford engine is not so far behind. There goes Alboreto in the Ferrari, which still hasn't found the 1987 form that the new Ferrari designer Barnard was looking for. And that's Riccardo Patrese who has spun off. And you will notice that Martin Brundle is out in the 1986 Zach Speed because he crashed the 1987 car in the warm-up this morning. And now Fabi in 4th position, that's him, is right under the rear wing of Eddie Cheever's Arrows. So Cheever 3rd, Fabi 4th, Alboreto 5th, Prost in 6th position. They're going down to the chicane now, and Nigel Mansell is some 3 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. That was Senna going through. There is Mansell, the race leader. 4 pole positions in 5 races. Mansell had the fastest lap at San Marino, which of course he won, and he really does need championship points. And Fabi really needs an opportunity now to get past Eddie Cheever. I think he's got the legs. Oh, and that's Caffey walking in. Alex Caffey walking in. His race is run, and we are now only on lap 6 as Cheever in 3rd place, chased by Fabi in 4th. Go round the left-hander. Behind them, Alboreto 5th, Prost 6th, Boutsen 7th. Fast and very furious, and if you are 1 millimetre out of line here at Detroit, there's Mansell, the race leader. You can hit those unyielding barriers as Nelson Piquet did in the lead last year to knock off his right front wheel. So Mansell, Senna, Cheever, Fabi, Alboreto and Prost. Those are the first 6 positions, and Nelson Piquet has yet to come round. Is he out of the Detroit Grand Prix this early? And Mansell in the Williams team has definitely got superiority this year. You can see how low the ride height of the Williams is, and now there are the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th men, and the 7th behind them. That's Cheever 3rd, Farby 4th, Alboreto 5th, Prost 6th, Boutsen 7th, and Berger is right up behind Boutsen now. And this, of course, is the marvellous thing about a street circuit like Detroit, with Ginzani in the pits in his Ligier with the Megatron engine, as they go with the Detroit River on their right on lap 7 out of 63. They are bunched up tight. They have each got 850 horsepower, and Boutsen going for that 3rd position, which Cheever denies him. Farby, not Boutsen. Boutsen is down in 7th position in the green car on the left in 4th position, Farby, and now he's trying again.
That's an unfortunate switch of camera then, because it looked as if Farby had got him that time. But we'll have to wait and see when we get back to that furious battle. Jonathan Palmer in the pits already, I'm afraid to say. What a shame, because he was hoping for a really good race. And he didn't make it.
Replay coming up, and this is Farby trying to pass Eddie Cheever. He brakes, Cheever turns, was already turning. There was no fault applicable to Cheever. Farby's lost his nose cone. Alboreto goes through and takes the 4th position from him. Boutsen is now in 5th position, and there's one panic-stricken marshal looking for a way out, and he finds it. So, out of the tunnel, Nigel Mansell coming through to complete his 7th lap. Nelson Piquet is on the circuit, is going. Farby actually won't suffer too much from the loss of the nose cone here at Detroit, which is the slowest Grand Prix circuit of them all. And downforce doesn't matter quite so much, but he's touring in, you see, to get a new nose cone, and he's passed by Riccardo Patrese in the Brabham BMW. There's Farby. So a new 3rd position man. The gap now between Nigel Mansell in the lead, as you look at the nose cone-less Benetton, and Ayrton Senna is over 5 seconds.
There, part of the braking system that you can see on the front of the car. Mansell stays in front.
Nigel Mansell's absolutely decimating this field. I mean, he's pulling away at the most horrific rate.
Well, he better pray that car is bulletproof as he slams around this course. There is no margin for error. It's one of the most difficult courses in Formula One. If you miss here, you're in a wall, and there is no recouping from those kind of situations.
Well, I mean, he's obviously driving. There we see Farby having his new nose put on, or they'll be thinking about putting one on, I guess.
I'm ready. I am ready.
Here's Dave Despain.
Teo Fabi's car on pit road, the nose cone missing, the engine has been shut
Eddie
down.
Cheever on pit lane too. Eddie Cheever
quickly to try to raise up the car on the jacks. Then the crew official said no, and now Fabi has climbed from the automobile. Teo Fabi climbing out. There apparently is more to the story than just the missing nose cone, as Teo Fabi has pulled off. Teo, what happened?
Well, Cheever was very slow, but he didn't want to let me by, so I had a little accident.
Is there more to the problem than just the nose cone, obviously? Do you know what else is wrong with the car?
No, just the nose.
So the nose cone is gone, and Teo has climbed out. However, he climbed out with that terminal look in his eye, and I suspect that car is parked for the day. Ken?
And David, Eddie Cheever pitted just at the same time. He came in to work on the Arrows car, so there was a problem on that machine as well. There's the leader, Nigel Mansell, staying in front in our live coverage of the Detroit Grand Prix. We'll be back with more live coverage of this Detroit event after this message and a word from your local station.
Démonstration de talent. Does them a lot of no good, and certainly they'd be expecting to make more than one tyre stop, probably 2 or 3. McLaren's on the other hand, are trying to nurse their tyres. Their car is kinder to tyres than the Williams chassis, and they would hope to gain advantage by not making as many stops.
And as you look at Martin Brundle being chased by the Minardi of Alessandro Nannini, the race order on lap 9 out of 63 is that Nigel Mansell is now some 6 seconds ahead and in a class of his own, as he was at Monaco when he was going. Ayrton Senna in the active suspension Lotus is second. Michele Alboreto in the Ferrari is third. In fourth position is Thierry Boutsen in the Benetton. Fifth is world champion Alain Prost. In sixth in the second Ferrari is Gerhard Berger. Seventh position is Johansson. Eighth is Derek Warwick. Ninth is Patrese. 10th is Brundle. 11th is Nannini. And in 12th position it is Philippe Streff. Piquet, struggling, is in 13th position behind Streff. There is the race leader, and he is not only the race leader but the fastest. 1 minute 45.3 compares with the lap record held by Piquet of 1 minute 41.2, and that was on special tyres last year, which they're not allowed to use this year, and of course with probably, well, I was going to say more turbo boost, certainly in practice, but not in the race. But whichever way you slice it, Nigel Mansell seems to be, these days, virtually unbeatable, provided the machinery does not let him down.
Yes, he's certainly dominating the qualifying for these races, and looked very good in all the races. He certainly dominates his teammate, Nelson Piquet, particularly on the street circuits, and he's looking most comfortable at the moment.
Just a point, James. Do you think he's overdoing it? He's now got a 6-second lead this early in the race. If this was you in the turbo, would you be turning the boost down and starting to conserve things?
No, I'd be running full power, but I'd be... in fact, I think his tactics look absolutely right at the moment. If he can get away, so long as his main concern is not to look after those tyres. If he's having no problem with the tyres, obviously, if you can build up a bit of a cushion, it's a help, and it's less pressure for him than having somebody right behind him. So he'd like to be on his own, and ideally he'd probably want to push out to about a 20-second lead if he can get it, and then start easing up. But it's a question of not sliding the car too much, and just being very, very careful with those tyres to get as much life out of them as possible.
When I talked to Senna after Monaco, he said that even when Mansell was 10 seconds ahead of him, as he was at one point, Senna was not the least bit worried, because he said it's a long race, there's a lot of fuel to consume, and there was plenty of time to charge. Well, before that had to happen, Mansell went out, and you are looking now at the battle for third position between Michele Alboreto in the red Ferrari, followed by Thierry Boutsen in the green and red and multicoloured, in fact, Benetton. So Boutsen well up, the Belgian, who a lot of people, including me, think is a real star, and if he had the machinery would prove it. What he hasn't had until this year, but now he's got a car for the first time probably here at Detroit with the Rory Byrne designed chassis and the new Ford engine, which could give him victory. Well, we'll see. Mansell leads, Senna second, Alboreto number 27 in third position. Behind him is Boutsen in the black helmet in the green car in fourth place, and then Alain Prost is in fifth place, pursued by Berger in the Ferrari sixth.
It'll be interesting to see now that Prost has got a clear road in front of him, whether he can reduce this gap. That's all starting to get into traffic. Left markers already. I'm just having a look at his tyres. They don't look too bad, but they don't look 100% healthy to me. Berger has gone missing. He was in sixth place. We don't as yet know what's happened to him.
Nigel Mansell really pressing. You can see the car shuddering under braking, and out of the race already have gone Chiva, Barbie has retired, Ginzani has retired, Barbara has retired, Kathy has retired, De Cesaris and Campos. So that's 7 drivers out of the race on lap 12, and there's going to be a lot more before it finishes, because as James said earlier, this could and probably will go the full distance. Last year this race took 1 hour and 51 minutes, and at the end of that time the drivers are very, very tired indeed, not only because of the constant gear changing and braking, but also because of the heat and humidity here. On Friday, the temperature was well over 90 degrees. The humidity was high, and that is energy sapping, to put it mildly.
Yes, the humidity is more unpleasant than the heat. It makes you sweat a lot more. You lose a lot more weight during the race. Now, this is certainly a very, very hard race indeed, physically. That won't bother Mansell too much. He's very, very strong. Works very hard on his fitness, trains very hard. And he's not under too much pressure at the moment.
The gap is 8 seconds now between Mansell. There he is, red 5, Nigel Mansell. Mansell's just pulled out 3 seconds on the lap that he was on, and you see the arrows coming very slowly out of the tunnel of Derek Warwick, and you can see the problem. Look, as you look at the screen, the left rear tyre, he's driving a seesawing car because the drive from the 2 rear wheels is going in opposite directions. Now, there's Alboreto third, so Warwick is going to be a retirement to add to the ones that we've got. There's no way they're going to be able to do anything about that problem. But is Thierry Boutsen in the green Benetton going to be able to do anything about the third place man, Michele Alboreto, with on lap 13 Mansell leading, Senna second. This is the excitement in the first 6 places. Alboreto third, Boutsen fourth. In 5th position, Alain Prost is pursuing his usual policy of taking things comparatively easy by his standards up at the front and watching form. And in 6th position it is still Gerhard Berger, but both Prost and Johansson are struggling with a McLaren chassis which has never been suitable for this Detroit circuit. They don't like it at all. Prost indeed qualified with 110 litres of fuel in, just so that he could get enough grip yesterday in practice, and that's very unusual. Now you see Boutsen closing up on braking on the Ferrari. Both V6 engines. Marshall furiously waving the flag there as Mansell comes through shortly to complete his 13th lap. Indeed, he has done so, and that's Capelli out. Ivan Capelli in the Leighton House March joins the retirees, of which there are now 9 of the 26, and I include Warwick, because there he is still touring in, having a great deal of trouble controlling the car. 9 of the 26 starters are out. Martin Brundle is 12th. Piquet has worked his way through the field up into 9th position, and on lap 14, Nigel Mansell leads. Senna is 2nd. Alboreto is 3rd. Boutsen is 4th. Prost is 5th. Berger is 6th. Johansson is 7th. Patrese is in 8th position. 9th is Nelson Piquet. In 10th position, it is Alessandro Nannini. That's a good drive. 11th is Philippe Streff. And in 12th position, Martin Brundle.
That this car is pretty much out of it unless they can replace that part. Tools are being thrown down here, a whole toolbox full of tools, and apparently they're going to try and fix the car. Unlike American racing, there are 17 pit crew members working on this car right now. He'll be in for a good while as he turns off the engine. Back to you, Ken.
Nelson Piquet is pulled into the 9th position. There's Michele Alboreto, who is maintaining 3rd at this time. 83.6 mile-an-hour average on this 2.5-mile, 20-turn course. It's Detroit, live on CBS, the Grand-Prix. Here's Dave Despain.
The problems for Derek Warwick, the second for this Arrows team here. Eddie Cheever's earlier problem that prompted the pit stop was the result of a punctured tire. They have replaced the tire, obviously, and he was quickly back out onto the racetrack. Warwick will be here much longer. Elsewhere, Jonathan Palmer's problem was the result of a suspension failure. A part in the rear suspension broke. Palmer was in for a matter of a couple of minutes and then returned to the racetrack. He is in that normally aspirated as opposed to turbocharged class, and we'll be talking more about that as the afternoon goes on. One other retirement from the race, Andre de Cesris of the Brabham team. Brabham had a problem this morning with the ignition on Ricardo Patrase's car. They fixed it. They said, we don't know if this car is going to last very long. We may be the first guys out today. Instead, it was de Cesris, the first car to drop out of the race today, and his problem was a broken gearbox. Ken?
14 laps complete, David, and here is Nelson Piquet, now in 9th position and closing on Ricardo Patrase's Brabham BMW-powered car.
Closing pretty fast, too.
Nelson Piquet, who had trouble, as Chris Economaki reported, deflated tire, got it punctured out here. Here he is in turn number 1, looking for Patrese to pick himself up another spot. Let's remind you, if you're following Formula One for the first time, that only 6 automobiles score World Championship points in one of these events. It's 9 points for the victory, 6 points for second, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So to move into the top 6 is serious.
And it's Boots and Prost.
Yeah, Prost is really starting to look for a way round Boutsen now, but I'm sure he'll be very careful indeed. He knows there's a long, long way to go yet in this race. There are tire stops to come, and there's Derek Warwick in the pits with that rear wheel that was all askew as he was trying to drive it back round, but I would have thought his race is over, although he's still sitting in the car. I'm looking hopeful. He lost a lot of time, of course, doing that very slow lap. They've got the back marker in the way of that battle, which is allowing Alboreto just to give himself a little bit of breathing space, because of course Boutsen is now having to focus his attention on the attacks from Alain Prost behind, which tends to slow one down a little bit when driving pretty much on your mirrors and having to defend lines into the corners. Prost will be anxious to get past as well, because of course he's still got Berger in attendance just behind him.
You will remember that James said that Nigel Mansell would ideally be looking for a gap between himself and the second place man, Ayrton Senna, of some 20 seconds. Well, he's nearly got it. It's up to 16 seconds now between Mansell, the leader, and Senna, second place. And the gap between Senna in second position and Alboreto is third is 17 seconds. And you can see that Alboreto has got Boutsen just behind him. Boutsen, as there is the new livery of the Tyrrell that you just saw momentarily there, as the Minardi comes round the corner. The Minardi of Campos. Campos is out of the race, I'm sorry, so it's the Minardi of Nannini. And now the Williams bearing down on the BMW-powered Brabham of Ricardo Patrese, who is in 8th position. So, and the man who's bearing down on him is Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet, 9th, and is closing up on Ricardo Patrese, soon to take it.
Senna's now retreating from Nigel Mansell at around a second a lap, and I would surmise that he's run into a little bit of tire trouble, because he doesn't seem to be running quite as well as he did earlier in the race. So I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him in the pits reasonably soon. Mansell will be anxious to get past Patrese in one piece. He won't be rushing it too much. Patrese is not an easy man to mess with. and I was wrong then. That was Nelson Piquet that we were looking at. Stefan Johansson goes through at the head of this little group.
Yeah, Johansson, you're looking at the battle for 7th, 8th and 9th, because Johansson, number 2 in the red and white Marlborough, is in 7th position. Piquet goes through and takes 8th position from Patrese. Patrese just ran a bit wide. Piquet saw his opportunity, gave it a blast, shot through down Larned Avenue, this very, very quick section, and now he takes Stefan Johansson, who is obviously in trouble because Patrese takes him, and it looks as though Stefan Johansson may well be coming up to be the 10th retirement of the Detroit Grand Prix on lap 17.
Certainly had to slow down the retire. Oh dear, that's a bit of probably a turbo that went. Quite a little blaze going on under that. It'll be oil probably from a broken turbocharger. So that looks like the end of the day's work for Stefan Johansson. Just a dramatic shot, but that's mostly just fire extinguisher foam.
Yes, Martin Brundle's Zack-Speed turbo caught fire. It's not an unusual problem, but it's unusual for it to last as long as that. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if whatever his problem is going to lead to his retirement. So let's get things organised on lap 18. It's still Nigel Mansell with nearly a 20-second lead over Ayrton Senna. In 3rd position, the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto. Then in 4th place, it is still Boutsen. And that in the pits is Stefan Johansson. Nose cone broken. That's the same problem that Theo Fabi had. And is he being wheeled away? Indeed he is. So it looks as though Johansson is the 10th retirement. There must have been something more serious than just a broken nose cone, because they can be replaced easily enough, even if it takes a little time. But the McLaren out, so there's only the McLaren of Alain Prost left in the running out of the 2 that started. He is in 5th place. Now, there is race leader Mansell on his 18th lap out of 63. Still a long way to go. So it's a Williams leading a Lotus, Ferrari 3rd, Benetton 4th, McLaren 5th, and another Ferrari in 6th place. Looking good for Ferrari as far as the Constructors' Championship is concerned. They're in 4th position in that at the moment, some 4 points behind Lotus. And there is Nigel Mansell, lap 19, nearly 20 seconds ahead of Senna. There are Boutsen, Prost and Berger, 4th, 5th and 6th.
Yes, Prost still unable to find a way past Boutsen. He's been pressing him for some laps now, and I should think he's getting anxious to get on with it. And Berger right behind him. But it is very difficult, very tight circuit. The braking areas are fairly short because there isn't room to get up to any speed, and this makes overtaking really quite tricky.
Well, Brundle giving up? He's trying to get out of the pits, but obviously they thought they'd fixed the turbo, and equally obviously they haven't, and I'm expecting to see the significant sign of the safety belts coming up, followed by Martin Brundle's body. But anyway, there is Boutsen in 4th position. Behind him, Prost, 5th. Behind him, Berger, 6th. Along Larned Avenue. Turn 10 coming up, and through goes Prost. Beautiful bit of late braking. And so now the race order is Mansell, Senna, and Prost is up into 4th position.
Yes, and I think Prost lulled Boutsen into a sense of false security there. He sold him a bit of a dummy, because I don't think Boutsen expected him to have a go at that particular point, and he took him well by surprise. So yellow flag on the start-finish line. I can't see. That's just for the Zack-Speed there, I think. Now, can Prost set about Michele Alboreto, who's just ahead of him? Not a very big gap to close, but he'll be keen to close that and attack the Ferrari.
There was only about 2 seconds last time I timed it. It's just a little over that now. But as we wait for them to come through, retirement so far. Cheever, well, no, never mind that, because now, there they go. Berger is well up. There's Prost. There is Boutsen. and now Berger. So on lap 20, it is Mansell leading, Senna second, Martin Brundle walking in to retire, Alboreto is third, fourth is Prost, in fifth position is, and as they come towards us, is Cheever is back in the race. That's what threw me. Eddie Cheever, who was the first apparent retirement, has had whatever the problem is in the arrows fixed, and now Berger is going through, and Boutsen seemingly is in trouble, and the producer's got a maddening characteristic of cutting just as we're about to tell you something exciting. The exciting thing was that Boutsen was about to lose his place, but he didn't, and Mansell then leading, Senna second, Alboreto third, Prost is fourth, Boutsen is fifth at the moment, Berger is challenging him in sixth position, and up to seventh now has come the second Williams of Piquet. Both Ferraris in the top six, and almost both Williams in the top six. Nelson Piquet is gaining on Berger in the Ferrari, who is in sixth position as you look at Alain Prost. There's Eddie Cheever. Now there is Alboreto third. Now the gap between Alboreto third and Prost fourth is 1.5 seconds, and the world champion Alain Prost is gaining on lap 20. Stefan Johansson is back in the running, so that means the retirements are now down to 9 with Cheever going and Johansson. Mansell, Senna, Alboreto, Prost and Boutsen are the leading 5. As ever, Prost with his enormous amount of experience, because this is his 110th Grand Prix, out of which he has won 27 to equal the all-time record of the great Jackie Stewart, is playing a waiting game. He is now easing up to the black rear wing of the red Ferrari of number 27, Michele Alboreto, who is in third position. Prost has come up from his starting grid position of fifth place. He has fought every inch of the way. We're not seeing much of race leader Mansell or second place man Senna, respectively, in the Williams Honda and the Lotus Honda, but they are still there, going past us regularly in third position, and fourth, the battle you're looking at now. Distinctive outline of Alain Prost, crouched down, little Frenchman, and he is little, but a giant in terms of driving ability. Down to the chicane. This will be to complete their 21st lap, which is just about 1/3 race distance, and the tyre changes have yet to happen. They will certainly be happening with the turbos. And the leading 3.5 litre car is that of Philippe Streff, the man who is leading the Drivers' Championship for the Jim Clark Trophy, leading it from his teammate Jonathan Palmer, 3 points ahead of him, but Streff is in 9th position overall at the moment and leading the 3.5 litre race, but there were only 5 cars in it when it started. And Berger, I can tell you, has got past Thierry Boutsen up into 5th place. So it is now on lap 22, Mansell leading Senna, Alboreto and Prost 3rd and 4th, and you're looking at them. 5th now is Berger, down to 6th goes Boutsen. Barbie, of course, in the second Benetton out of the race. 9 retirements. Alboreto and Prost are catching Eddie Cheever, who has rejoined the race, and the retirements now on lap 22 are Fabi, Ginzani, Fabra, Cafe, De Cesaris, Campos, Derek Warwick, Capelli and Martin Brundle. Well, I don't think it's 7/10 of a second, the gap between Alboreto and Prost. It looks a lot less than that to me. It's a visual gap now, and Prost is harrying Alboreto every inch of the way.
Yes, he'll be looking very carefully to see if there's any obvious point where Alboreto is slow, and it's quite likely to take, he's already had a couple of laps on his tail, but to take his time before he makes his decision. It has to be a planned affair, getting past somebody on a circuit such as this. Alboreto, meanwhile, will be driving more and looking behind him more than he's looking ahead of him. He'll be driving very much on the mirrors. and he'll be watching Prost so that he can counter any move that Prost might make to overtake him.
Moments ago, we saw him engulfed in flame and fire extinguisher stuff, and now he's out of the race with, what was the problem, Martin?
We've got a blown turbocharger.
Had a scary moment there. I'm wondering about the racetrack. There's been so much talk and so much concern about Detroit track conditions. How is it?
Well, it's good. It's the same for everybody. You know, we all go around the same track, and you have to make the best of it. We're supposed to be the best drivers in the world, as I've said before. So I find that the track is very demanding, but having said that, Formula One cars are not really designed for this type of track, but nonetheless, here we are. We're pleased to be here, and unfortunately, it's not my weekend.
Any deterioration of the new pavement that they put down out there?
Deterioration of?
Of the new pavement, the new paved section.
Not that I can see.
Martin Brundle out of the race, blown turbocharger the problem. Ken?
Well, you saw the attempt being made by Prost to take that position away for Alboreto. The scrap is for third position.
He certainly had a go, but it wasn't going to be his moment just right then, but I'm sure he'll have a few more goes before the afternoon's out to liven it up for all of us viewers. Martin Brundle was very forthright there, and a sort of thing that I've often felt myself, that a racetrack is a racetrack, and it's no good completely whinging about the track. You have to make the best of it that you can on the day and with the conditions prevailing.
Prost, number one, could have won his 28th Grand Prix at Monaco, but from early in that race, there were wisps of smoke from his usually reliable Porsche tag engine. From there, it was a slow death at Monaco. Today, he's in fourth, challenging for third. More in a moment.
Toutes les études faites par Barnard pour Ferrari sont faites en inches et en feet, en pouces, en pieds, en livres, et que tout cela doit être traduit, doit être converti à Maranello, ce qui sans doute ne simplifie pas les choses. Il n'en demeure pas moins que les Ferrari, ici c'est la rose.
In the Haas Lola Ford last year, and Alboreto is getting through the traffic well, very experienced driver. He's now up to the 3.5-litre car of Alio, and this is giving Gerhard Berger in the red second Ferrari, both of them in the top six, the opportunity to close up on Prost. So we're soon going to have the two Ferraris sandwiching the red and white McLaren, third, fourth and fifth, with Mansell leading, Senna second. This is lap 24, and in sixth position it is Boutsen still, seventh is Nelson Piquet, in eighth position it is Riccardo Patrese, and in ninth place it's Philippe Streff, the leading 3.5-litre car. Out of the tunnel they come. Alio, Alboreto, Prost down to the chicane, completing another lap shortly.
Yes, I think you lose a little bit of grip on the tyres, which would probably mean that it's working. And Prost's having a look. But Alboreto once again countered the attack. He kept it well over the left-hand side of the road, closing off the inside line, which is the obvious one for overtaking. And he's already shown earlier in this race that he won't stand for any nonsense, because when Theo Fabi was coming alongside him, trying to pass him, he just went firmly chop across his bows, which he was pretty much entitled to do, because Fabi hadn't won the corner, as it were, but it can be quite hard, Alboreto.
Now they're coming up to René Arnoux, a very difficult man to pass. He is in 11th place, and now the two Ferraris, third and fifth, with Prost between them, are absolutely together. Alboreto takes Arnoux, Prost takes Arnoux, Berger takes Arnoux. I'm sorry, René, I take it all back. They got past him without any trouble at all.
Yes, very well behaved there. Just let them go. And that wouldn't necessarily be to Prost's advantage. He might have liked him in front for a few corners, because that can very often, lapping a back marker, can very often present an overtaking opportunity for the man behind. It's always a nervous time for the driver in front, because anything unexpected from the lapped car. And there goes Prost, and he's made it, and Berger was having a look as well.
And he's done it. Alboreto thrown there, and Berger did what so very often happens. He followed the faster man through while the man who was being passed was rattled. So now Alain Prost is up to third, Berger is up to fourth, Alboreto is in trouble because he has been passed by René Arnoux, and it looks as though the unfortunate Michele Alboreto, who has only finished in the points twice this year, in spite of the fact that he's in the car everybody wants to drive, a Ferrari, or everybody used to want to drive. So now the Ferrari battle is taken up by Gerhard Berger, the man who won the Mexican Grand Prix in a Benetton last year, with Mansell, as you see, some 17 seconds ahead of Senna. The gap is not as much as it was, and we're very shortly going to see, we expect, people coming in for tyres. They're on lap 26. They change tyres before the half-distance mark, usually, and the half-distance mark in this race is lap 31 or 32, because it's a 63-lap race. And now Alain Prost, having fought his way up from 5th on the grid to 3rd in the race on lap 26 out of 63, has got to contend with Berger. But the Austrian in the Scarlet Ferrari is not close enough yet to give Alain Prost a problem. Berger is in 7th position in the championship. He's had 2 4th places this year, and he's failed to finish in both San Marino and Belgium. Those of you who are wondering what has happened to Mansell and Senna, I can only say that we're sorry, but I'm quite sure that the producer is understandably concentrating on giving us this battle for 3rd position, and it was between Alboreto, Prost and Berger, and is now between Prost and Berger, because Mansell is now over 20 seconds ahead of Senna. Senna is 10 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, so the gap between, and as I say it, we see Ayrton Senna in 2nd position, and the gap has certainly diminished.
There goes Alboreto into the pits, and what will be interesting now is to see if Prost and Berger can make any impression on Ayrton Senna. There is Senna. He will, of course, be aware now that Prost is his newest pursuer. It's the first time in the race that Prost has had a clear track in front of him. He's been battling past people up till now. But, of course, he's got Berger behind him.
Well, such is the dominance of Nigel Mansell that the cameras aren't looking at him. But here is the 2nd place man. Let's go round the lap with Ayrton Senna. He goes into turn 16, now the left-hander at 17, into the chicane. Out of it, which is past the pits on his left. Now, the straight and into turn 1, Detroit River on his right, your left. Turn 2, up Atwater Street, a little short straight which leads up to the 2nd gear. Turn 3, right-hander. Ayrton Senna in 2nd position, over 20 seconds behind race leader Nigel Mansell, with almost half the race run, and a long way still to go. Past the Formula 1 garage on his left. Turn 4. Now 5 into Woodbridge Street, from Woodbridge Street up to turn 6 and 7, both left-handers as he takes the right there. Now he's coming up to the fastest part of the course, this 190-mile-an-hour section, 160-mile-an-hour section. Even Senna can't go that quick, down Larned Avenue. Turn 10, the left-hander. And there is Nigel Mansell. Race leader, Nigel Mansell, lap 28. 1:43.16, that's still 2 seconds outside the lap record. But Mansell in a terrific groove of his own. And Nelson Piquet is now in 5th position. Both the Williams are in the points because it's Mansell leading on lap 28 from Ayrton Senna that you've just been looking at. 3rd is Alain Prost. There he is. 4th is Gerhard Berger. In sixth position, it is Nelson. Fifth position, it is Nelson Piquet. And in sixth position, Thierry Boutsen, who is still going. But Nigel Mansell just has to keep his concentration up and his car going. Because, as I have said many, many times, the Williams team have a superlatively good radio pits-to-car system where the driver and Frank Williams, who is his race engineer and the man who looks after him during the race, can converse with each other very clearly. And Frank will be telling Nigel exactly what the situation is behind him. I don't suppose Nigel will be doing much chatting, but he will be making the necessary replies and soon be telling Frank when he is coming in for new tyres, and surely it can't be very much longer. Both the Williams, I can tell you that both the Williams and the McLaren pit crews are ready. They are expecting someone to come in for tyres, and the someone therefore, well, there's the Ligier. Ghinzani, who has rejoined the race because we thought he had retired, but Ghinzani is back in the race, and so Nigel Mansell comes out of the tunnel. Is he going to go into the pits this time? We'll know very shortly. He's approaching the chicane, and you can expect him as he goes left, if he's going into the pits, to peel off immediately, but he doesn't. Over the line to complete another lap, which is lap 29. And there's the visual demonstration of the humidity. Well, 1987 is turning out very, very much to be a Lotus versus Williams versus McLaren season, as was 1986. Prost has won 2 races in the McLaren this year, Brazil and Belgium. Mansell won in San Marino. Senna won at Monaco, of course. And now it's Williams leading with Nigel Mansell at the wheel. Senna in second position in the Lotus Honda. Honda engines propelling both the lead cars. You hear the stabs of power as Mansell just gets his foot down, and this circuit is all point and squirt, stop and start, up through the gearbox, down through the gearbox, put on the brakes very hard indeed. Carbon fibre brakes, and incidentally, Senna in the Lotus is using for the first time, officially anyway, in a race, the new Tilton carbon fibre 5.5-inch clutch, which is a Lotus exclusive, as is the active suspension. So Lotus are very much the innovators in Grand-Prix racing engineering this season.
There we see Nelson Piquet, cheeky looking chap, isn't he?
16 events.
Laying down a lot of rubber on this track, digging a few holes in it too. See, you can see where they're digging the asphalt up there in a couple of spots.
Now that's part of the new paving. About 20% of the track has been paved, and directly in front of us this morning. It had lasted through a Trans Am race yesterday. It had gone through all the practice. The surface was great. It rained intensely this morning. They came out and the traffic began to tear up a part of the 20th turn on the course. We're also seeing it break up on the other side as well a bit.
It doesn't look too bad yet, but you can see where they're putting an awful lot of rubber down. And at the next corner, I was going to say, where Nelson's about to go around, you can really see
new surface, mixing oil and water together, potential for ripping the surface. And
well, there you can see a good description of how much rubber they're putting down on the road. Those 2 lovely black marks out of that turn 4. There's the 2.
Senna now has the fastest lap in the race at 1:42.4. Ayrton Senna is turning up the wick. He's going for it.
He has also closed another 2 seconds up on the leader.
There's Dr. Jonathan Palmer and Streff going at it. Streff falling back. 9th and 10th, I would think, on the field. Oh, that's 8th.
No, I think Jonathan Palmer's a long way down because he stopped in the pits for some time.
Indeed, he did.
But they are both back on the track now, yeah. These are the 2 people that were really hoping for rain, actually, because they've got the normally aspirated engines. Jonathan Palmer's in actual 15th spot. There we see Senna coming up to pass one of the Data General cars. That's number 4.
Streff. Diving down underneath the highway. headed for the Atwater Tunnel. Restaurant, a very tricky turn. They come up just before this tunnel. 5 of them spun there this morning in the wet. Here comes Senna.
And always
For the leader.
You go into that gloom. It's not so bad today because it's a pretty gloomy day anyway. But it is a very different life.
Well, as you said earlier, Murray, Senna after Monte Carlo reckoned that although there's Alain Prost doing fine, that he had something in hand, and he was happy to see Mansell pull away ahead of him because he felt he could make his challenge later in the race, and it's just possible that he's trying the same thing today.
Indeed it is, James. The gap is down from 20 seconds between Nigel Mansell and the Yellow Lotus of Ayrton Senna to a whisker over 11 seconds. Ayrton Senna has nearly halved the gap. Jonathan Palmer is in the light. Why should he move over? He's on the racing line and he's entitled to keep to it, but Senna won't like that very much, and I suspect he gave a touch of the boost button on the steering wheel there to blast past the 3.5 litre Tyrrell, because Senna, this consummately cool Brazilian, is on his way. Now there is Nigel Mansell. He is race leader on lap 32. He has still not changed his tyres. He goes into the tunnel to complete his 32nd lap. Is he going to go into the pits this time? If he does and Senna doesn't, the Brazilian will certainly take the lead. There he is into the tunnel. You can see visually that the gap is reducing. Ayrton Senna is charging out of the tunnel.
Yes, unless his charge has come to an end by hurting his tyres, because I notice now how easy the Tyrrell is keeping up with him.
Yes, Senna ahead of Jonathan Palmer, and the race order on lap 33 with only those two, Mansell and Senna, that you're looking at having completed 32 laps, as Stefan Johansson, who is well down the field, and Streff is now up into 7th place, incidentally, almost in the points. And this is getting to be really exciting and tremendously interesting and significant, because Philippe Streff in the 3.5 litre Tyrrell, who will not be making a pit stop for tyres, is just 1 place out of the points. And you will recall that at Monaco, a circuit similar to Detroit 3 weeks ago, there's Mansell the leader. Jonathan Palmer finished in 5th place in a 3.5 litre car, and Ivan Capelli finished in 6th place. Here is Mansell. Now, is he going to come in this time? I'm getting worried on Mansell's behalf now. He doesn't seem to be bothered about it. But the gap is coming down, and Mansell is looking as though, he's looking to me as though he was struggling there.
Yes, if he's going to change his tyres, now would definitely be the time. Because remember, the set he's on now has had to carry the car around on full tanks of fuel, which of course makes a big increase in the weight. But still, he goes round again. You get a lovely shot of those plumes of condensation there off the wing.
I'm going to stick my neck out and make a guess, which could be 1,000,000 miles out. Has Mansell got a clutch problem? He seems to me to be having trouble with gear engagement. Look. There is something amiss with the Williams. The gap has come down from 20 seconds to 11 seconds. And Senna is gaining all the time. And if Mansell has got a clutch problem, he will be reluctant to come into the pits and stop to take on new tyres. Meantime, Gerhard Berger is coming into the pits in 4th position. And Senna continues to gain. Here comes Mansell. You can see the humidity as you look at the rear wing. To Larned Avenue. Mansell leads, Senna 2nd, Prost 3rd, Berger 4th, coming into the pits, and Piquet in 5th position. Both Williams are in the top 5 cars. Down to the end of Larned Avenue to turn 10 comes the race leader, Nigel Mansell. Back turn 12 12 which he's approaching is slippery and dangerous. Into the tunnel, the Goodyear tunnel. Well, he's going well here. But if we look back, we may soon, on lap 35, which Mansell is soon to start, see the Yellow Lotus coming into sight. He's definitely slowing. You can see Mansell's in trouble. Into the pits. This is it. Right. Now, Senna will take the lead. Look across, and you may see the Yellow Lotus go. There he goes. Senna is now leading the Detroit Grand Prix. Is this going to be a good pit stop? No, it is not, because as you can see, they got trouble. The right rear is stuck. Mansell has not only lost the lead to Senna, but he's in danger of losing the third place. He blasts out.
Yes, what a terrible shame for Mansell and for the Williams team there. They've been so good with their pit stops, but they had trouble, and then Prost moves up into second place. He's just gone through there. And that was a very costly problem there. The trouble is with you can't guarantee, there is no system that can be designed that is foolproof about problems of wheels sticking and not fitting properly, and that is of course because the various different materials with the hub and the wheel, they're made out of different metals, and so with all that heat there, they expand at different rates, and so the problem can always happen.
Well, the cool, the immaculate, the calm, the consummate stylist, Ayrton Senna, number 12 in the Lotus Honda, with the active suspension and the carbon fibre clutch to give you all the technicalities, is now leading the Detroit Grand Prix on his 35th lap, which is just over half race distance. The man who won at Monaco is now leading here, and on lap 35, Senna is in the lead. Prost is in second place. Mansell in third position. In fourth place, it's Nelson Piquet. Fifth is Gerhard Berger, and in sixth position still is Boutsen.
Remember, of course, that neither Senna nor Prost have made their tyre stops yet, and that could put Mansell just about back into the lead when they do it, but I would suspect, that's if they're going to make tyre stops, I suspect that'll make a pretty close run thing. But Senna, at the moment, is turning it on. He's the fastest man on the circuit. I would think that if he's going to stop, he'll be thinking about doing it pretty soon, but maybe not while he's got a clear track in front of him. He might wait until he sees a bit of traffic ahead, and at that point that would be a good point to stop, rather than having to work his way through them and then stop.
There's the arrows into the pits. It's got to be Cheever, because Warwick went out a long time ago. But Ayrton Senna, now leading the race, is in a position very shortly to be leading the World Championship. He started this race 3 points behind Alain Prost, the World Championship leader. Prost now in second place. So there's 3 points difference between them in the race, and if they both finish where they are now, and of course there is a long way to go, it means they will be tying for the lead in the World Championship. Ayrton Senna then leads the Detroit Grand Prix on lap 36 out of 63 from Alain Prost in second position, Nigel Mansell third, in fourth position the second Williams of Nelson Piquet, fifth the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, sixth is Boutsen, in seventh place and leading the 3.5 litre class is Philippe Stretch. In eighth position is Eddie Cheever, who has forced his way up, right up through the field, largely because of retirements, with no disrespect to him. In ninth position, it is Christian Danner in the Zach Speed, his teammate Martin Brundle having retired long ago. Then it is René Arnoux, and then Philippe Alliot. 11 people effectively left in this race out of the 26 who started, and Nigel Mansell is now right up with Alain Prost in second position. Mansell third, Prost second. You're looking at the race leader, Ayrton Senna. This is lap 37. Hopefully we will see Prost and Mansell together soon, and we'll start putting a stopwatch on the gap between Senna and Mansell in an effort to see whether the Englishman is catching the Brazilian, and there is Senna.
Yes, well, now that Mansell's got his fresh set of tyres on and had a couple of laps to get him properly warmed up. And that is Boutsen coming in. His tyre stop. And that looked like a very good one. Fantastic. He's a little bit slow just finishing off that stop, but no, Mansell would be keen to get past Prost as quickly as possible, because on fresh rubber that may be a bit easier than it can be, bearing in mind that Alain Prost's on some fairly well-worn stuff.
Well, the gap between Senna and Prost at the moment for us to start working on is just a whisker over 19 seconds. Prost in second place has got a visual gap between himself and Mansell. Prost will see that in his mirrors, and Mansell will see it looking ahead in third position. Piquet in fourth place still in the Williams. Berger in fifth position still in the Williams. Boutsen, of course, has now lost his sixth place, and he's lost it to Philippe Streff, who is in the points at last. And I think he will finish higher up, because he will be going through without a stop in the 3.5 litre Tyrrell. And Mansell is second again. Mansell has got past Prost. Hopefully we'll see it in a moment. But as Senna comes past in the lead, Nigel Mansell has got past Alain Prost, the world champion, in his McLaren tag. And Mansell is in second place in the Detroit Grand Prix. He was some 19 seconds behind the race leader. Now, is he catching the man you're looking at, Ayrton Senna, who, of course, has still got to make a tyre stop? So Mansell would regain his lead. There is Prost, third now.
Well, that was a great shame that we were watching Senna all on his own when Prost and Mansell were battling away. And there is Nigel Mansell. Let's see if he can go and stretch out that gap and close up on Senna at all. Can he make time? He's 21 seconds behind. And Senna certainly was pulling away a little bit, but of course Mansell has now got past Prost and should be able to go a bit quicker on his own.
Well, Senna needs to increase the gap, because with Mansell on new tyres and Senna, unless he's going to try and go through non-stop, which would surprise me, still having to come in, we could get a reversal, because 20 seconds is not enough of a lead to enable you to retain your lead whilst making a pit stop. Ayrton Senna is now on his 39th lap. Streff's 6th place and single world championship points didn't last long, because Boutsen, who made his tyre stop and is now on fresh, albeit heated thanks to the electric blankets, rubber, has passed the Frenchman in the Tyrrell. Boutsen is back to 6th place, and down to 7th place goes Streff. The gap between Mansell and Senna that you're looking at now, the race leader on lap 39 out of 63, has increased to 22 seconds. So Senna at the moment, notwithstanding the fact that he is on worn tyres and Mansell on new ones, is easing away at the rate of some 1 second a lap. Senna is coming out of the tunnel now, down to turn 16, 17, 18, 19, which leads into the pits. And he goes through. Well, now, last year, Senna came into the pits unexpectedly, and we had the sight of Kenny Szymanski, who with Clive Hicks looks after the tyres that the Lotus team use, running across from the pit wall to the pit like a jackrabbit when Senna rushed into the pits unexpectedly. This time it won't happen, of course, because the radio system will ensure that Senna will be able to coolly tell Peter Wall, the Lotus team manager, as into the pits comes Prost. Prost in third position. Now, anything around 8 seconds is very good. Anything below is fantastic. Oh, the right front is stuck. This is costing Prost dear. 13 seconds is nothing to write home about these days. It would be nice if you could go to the local garage and get your wheels and tyres changed in 13 seconds, but it's not good in Grand Prix racing.
It's a great shame that was another jammed wheel once again. It is a technical problem, an engineering problem that nobody has found a solution for as yet. This different metals and different rates of expansion round between the hub and the wheel. And that's what caused it. So that's put Alain Prost pretty much out of the battle for the lead in effect, but what we're waiting for is to see if Senna is going to come in for fresh rubber. If he's going to, I would have thought he ought to do it sooner rather than later.
I find Senna's progress nothing short of amazing, because he has just on his 39th lap out of 63 on the same set of tyres that he started the race on, broken the lap record, which was 1:41.2. He's gone round almost a second faster than the lap record, notwithstanding the fact that the tyres he is using are standard compound, which is obligatory in Grand Prix racing this year, and notwithstanding the fact that he may have a lower boost.
Alain Prost has pitted and returned to the Detroit Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell, they are now saying maybe sustaining some engine problems. Remember, he turned that incredibly quick lap, 1:40.5.
He's losing ground fast. He lost 4 seconds on that one lap. He's now 33 seconds behind the leader and will be falling back into the clutches of Alain Prost very shortly. There's Nigel Mansell.
Apparently rupturing something in that engine as he tried desperately to get back into this race.
Sounds all right.
Here's one, and it's really socked the wall. That is Benetton, is it not?
No, that's the car of, yes, who is that the car of?
Alio, it's Philip Alio's car.
The Lola Formula 5000.
Philip Alio, and he is now out of the race. That is the number 30 car of Alio, who had been running in 11th position.
Very funny about putting numbers on Formula 1 cars. They've got so much writing on, they've got room for the numbers. Here comes Ayrton Senna again, still not stopping.
Better
this
than
rate, he probably won't have to bother to stop.
Nelson Piquet is now closing on Prost as they battle for second position. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Que le record est de 1:41,2 et qu'il reste plus de 20 tours, donc les réservoirs sont encore bien chargés, en tout cas pas loin de la moitié du liquide de la capacité des 195 litres, bien que l'entrée Philippe Alliot qui rentre, bien qu'on n'ait certainement pas rempli les réservoirs à rabord pour cette course, étant donné qu'il n'y aura aucun souci de consommation.
Number 12, Lotus Honda, Ayrton Senna. Second, over 30 seconds behind him, Nigel Mansell. In third position, world champion Alain Prost. In fourth position, it is Nelson Piquet. Fifth is Gerhard Berger. Sixth is Thierry Boutsen. Seventh is Philippe Streff. And the gap between Senna, the race leader, and Mansell is now 25 seconds. So the gap has come down.
Yes, the traffic, of course, can make a lot of difference on a circuit such as this. When you're lapping back markers, you can lose a fair bit of time. And so the gaps tend to seesaw up and down as one person runs into traffic and then gets a clear run.
Well, here's Eddie Cheever going extremely well in front of Boutsen. Coming towards us are Prost and Piquet. So Nelson Piquet in fourth position is up with the world champion. It could well be that the two Williams Hondas are shortly going to be second and third, because Piquet has fairly rocketed through the field. Oh, that's interesting. Piquet has fairly rocketed through the field since he came in very early on in the race to have, I thought, some rubbish removed from the side pod. And he's now up to the third position man, Alain Prost, on lap 43. Ayrton Senna out on his own. Seemingly Nigel Mansell not able to do very much about it. In second position, third and fourth, the two cars you're looking at now, behind the Tyrrell of Philippe Streff in the blue helmet. Both of them take him, and Piquet was looking for an opportunity to get through there, and he's done it. Nelson Piquet takes Alain Prost and moves up into third place behind Mansell and Senna.
Yes, tremendous piece of opportunist driving there by Nelson Piquet. He used the slower cars in front to distract Prost's concentration, and Prost failed to cover the inside line, so Piquet moves up into third place.
Both Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, who are now respectively fourth and third, do not like this Detroit circuit. Piquet doesn't like street circuits, period. Prost, of course, loves Monaco, having won there so many times. But Prost certainly will be praying for the fast circuits that are coming up. So there's Piquet, Prost, third and fourth, and Prost will be praying for those fast circuits. The French Grand Prix at the Paul Ricard circuit is in 2 weeks' time, on July the 5th, and that's where the McLaren can really stretch its legs. But then, these days, so can the Williams Honda and the Lotus Honda. So Alain Prost is very much in danger of losing his World Championship lead to Ayrton Senna. This is lap 44. Less than 20 laps to go around this 2.5 mile, 4.02 kilometers circuit. And Nelson Piquet, who has recovered now totally from the bruises and battering he had in that terrific crash at the Imola circuit in practice for the San Marino Grand Prix. And look at the gap that he's pulled out over the fourth place man Alain Prost. And I rather have a feeling that Alain Prost is philosophically saying to himself, this is it, I will stay here, because there is no point in pressing. He's not going to catch Piquet, who has just passed him. He's not going to catch Mansell, who is second. He's certainly not going to catch Senna. So Prost will be hoping for retirements in front of him, or at worst, finishing where he is in fourth position, which would give him another 3 World Championship points.
Well, despite his stated dislike of the circuit, Piquet is really putting on a most impressive performance. He's really got the bit between his teeth. You remember, he stopped very near the beginning of the race, re-emerged in some 19th place, and he's driven right the way through up to third now.
As race leader Senna is on his 45th lap with the impressive Renaissance Centre, where you could live the whole of your life without ever coming out of it, because it's so big, with all the shops and amusements and entertainments you could possibly want, not to mention the hotels. And there is the Ligier in the pits again. It will be that of Ghinzani, as into the pits comes Boutsen for the second time in the primarily green Benetton Ford. Enormous gesticulations at the back. Out of the pits came was René Arnoux, not Ghinzani. And the gap now between Senna and Mansell has gone up to over 36 seconds. Senna is almost in the position of being able to enjoy the luxury of coming into the pits, changing tyres and getting away without losing his lead. I say almost, but not in my opinion, quite.
Yes, well, I'm surprised that he hasn't been in for tyres yet. It makes me suspect that he's going to try and go the distance, possibly without stopping. Because it would make no sense to stop so well after half distance as this. And certainly he wouldn't appear to be suffering from a lack of grip, because that's evidenced by his particularly fast lap times over the last few laps. So he's obviously not in a grip problem. And maybe that was the tactics of taking it very easy in the first third of the race, to let the tyres come in, really look after him, and then go for it from about 1/3 distance onwards.
Well, this is another manifestation of the superiority of the exclusive Lotus Active suspension, which has dispensed with the conventional springs and shock absorbers and replaced them with a hydraulic pressure system where a computer and sensors tell the suspension what to do, and the result is that the car is steadied over the bumps, the driver gets a very relaxed ride, and even more significantly, and I think this is the point, it gives the tyres a much easier time. And if Senna is indeed, and his lead now is 39 seconds over Mansell, he's extending it all the time, if Senna is indeed going to go through this race without stopping for a new set of Goodyear tyres, it will be not only because of his consummate driving skill, care and attention for the rubber, but also because he has this unique suspension system, which means that the tyre... Oh, and that's Straff lost a wheel. Straff in the Tyrrell has lost a wheel, bouncing off down the road, and the three-wheel Tyrrell, that's a unique design in Grand Prix racing, stops at the exit of the pit lane as through come Patrese and Boutsen. That's Fabre dodging the wheel, and Ayrton Senna quizzically looking at the rolling right rear of Philippe Straff's Tyrrell. So yet another retirement. Unfortunately, the Frenchman is perfectly okay. He certainly has the dramas, does Philippe Straff. I remember at the French Grand Prix last year, he tried to come into the pits with his car on fire. The Pompier drove down the pit lane the wrong way, did everything wrong, while Straff shrugged his shoulders and walked away, as he will no doubt be doing now. And Senna is still flying. A new record lap of 1 minute 40.46, which is very close to 90 miles an hour and a second faster than the previous lap record. And now he's coming up to Riccardo Patrese, who is in 10th position at the moment, and he passes him.
Yes, that is very close to his qualifying time. The gap is now 43 seconds, so he's still piling it on and pulling away from Mansell, and certainly the active suspension seems to be doing a good job here.
Had today of communication between the race cars and those black boxes back behind the walls, all the headsets, all the technology. The only man who knows when and if Ayrton Senna is coming in is Ayrton Senna. The decision has been made to let him run as long as he wants to, as long as the car feels comfortable. And certainly they are advising him of that lead, which is growing, which will make him more comfortable. The moment he feels that the car is in need of tires, he will signal old-fashioned style by waving to the team as he comes by the pits, and then will make his pit stop. As David Hobbs points out, he can now get in and out of the pits with fresh tires and maintain the lead, and that may well be the story of this Detroit Grand Prix. Ken?
Thank you, David. Here's Senna, still in front with better than 34 seconds. We can see, I believe, what happened to the Straff car here at the chicane that created this incident a moment ago where the tire separated from the car. Here's the chicane. Here's the car coming up now.
Oh, the wheel nut. The wheel nut came off. You can see it. Oh, that's handy.
There's the old wheel nut coming right off the machine, and it was all
have to take
the
it
way.
back to the man at the garage and tell him to tie it up next time.
There's the car resting down in turn number 1. Went all down the straightaway, came to a halt just at the entrance of turn 1. So there are now 47 of 64 laps complete. More from Detroit shortly.
Avec Chivert qui est revenu dans les points malgré son arrêt. Alors ce Grand Prix est certainement un succès pour les organisateurs qui ont signé la semaine dernière un nouveau contrat avec la FOCA.
Of the Detroit Grand Prix have gone Theo Fabi, Alex Caffey, Andrea De Cesaris, Adrian Campos, Derek Warwick, Ivan Capelli, Martin Brundle, Michele Alboreto, Philippe Alliot, but there is Alain Prost in 4th position, the world champion, just driving round now, being careful to keep away from the walls, not so far away from Nelson Piquet. You saw a quick flash of the Williams Honda. Well, there it was again. So Prost has far from given up. He never does that. He fights to the very finish, because until you've seen the checkered flag, the race hasn't been completed. And there is Senna doing exactly the same thing. Arnoux on the right, chasing the arrows of Eddie Cheever, who is now in 6th position. Thierry Boutsen is in 7th place. Christian Danner is in 8th position. 9th is René Arnoux, that you have just seen, and here is race leader Ayrton Senna. Lap 49 into the tunnel. This is his 51st Grand Prix. And Ayrton Senna, the brilliant Brazilian, has won 5 of them and has achieved an incredible 18 pole positions in his life. He started from the front position on the grid 18 times. His first Grand Prix season, 1984, for Tolman. Then he joined the team that he's with now, Lotus, in 1985. He's a multi-millionaire, of course, at the age of 27. And my goodness, he's worked very, very hard for every penny of that money. Lives in Monaco, runs a fleet of very impressive road cars. And there's another multi-millionaire while we're talking of him, Alain Prost, world champion in 1985 and 1986. What an incredible world championship record he has got. Because he was 5th in 81, 4th in 82, 2nd in 83, 2nd in 84, and world champion for the last 2 years. And Prost not only drives a racing car consummately well, as we look at Nelson Piquet in the Williams Honda, but Prost runs a very successful promotional business as well, and has just promoted the Pau Formula 3000 race down in the south of France. Well, there's Piquet, and you can see the gap between Piquet in 3rd position and Prost in 4th. And I think I maligned Alain when I said he was in effect coasting by his standards, because the gap between himself and Piquet seems to be closing. Now Piquet is starting to catch Mansell.
I would guess that Mansell is in some sort of trouble, although of course with traffic you can get these 4-second swings, but the way he's been losing ground to Senna so fast makes me think he's got a bit of mechanical trouble of some sort with his car. And of course, so we could be in for quite a lively finish, because that would mean not only is Piquet catching him, but it also means that Prost is, because Prost is holding on and to Piquet's tail. He's not quite on his tail at the moment, but he's certainly in a position to sweep up any mistake or any problem that Piquet might have.
There's Arnoux in the Ligier Megatron, again moving over most politely and letting Ayrton Senna through. And Ayrton Senna has got a superb rhythm going now. He's flowing his way around this course, keeping away from the barriers and the danger that they carry with them. We saw Nelson Piquet last year hit the barrier a resounding clout, or rather the wall a resounding clout, just after he had come out of the tunnel in the lead, removing the right front wheel and the right front aerofoil very convincingly. And talk of Piquet, there he is. Now, I wonder if we're going to see Alain Prost. Now, Piquet is going like smoke. He's only 9 seconds behind Mansell now on this, the 51st lap. Senna leads. Mansell second, 9 seconds ahead of Piquet third. Piquet is gaining. Prost is just behind Piquet. And in 4th position, 5th is still Berger. 6th is still Eddie Cheever. Now there is Prost. And here is Senna. I am astounded is the only word I can use. I've just had a good long look at Ayrton Senna's tyres there as he came towards us, and they are seemingly in excellent shape. And that is after 51 laps. An astounding achievement, and there's little doubt now that Senna, could he so desire, could come into the pits, change his tyres, get away, and still be in the lead.
Yeah, there was time for a cup of tea too. But I think his tactics have been very sensible, and that shows. I've been a critic of Senna's tactics in the past, but I think today's drive has shown a lot of maturity. He quite clearly set out to look after his tyres and take it easy in the first half, or first third of the race, and then when the tyres, with a bit more wear on them, they're a bit more durable, you can get them, they don't build up heat so much, and so you can give them more of a hammering, and that certainly is what he's done. It's a very good effect indeed.
And you look at the excellent Eddie Cheever, the man who last weekend finished in 5th position at Le Mans, in the only Jaguar to go the full 24 hours, to the vast disappointment of 99% of the British population. But Cheever now, who's really got some racing miles in this year, driving in Grand Prix racing for the Arrows Megatron team and in sports car racing for Jaguar, has here in Detroit this year, as he did last year, covered himself with glory. He was 3rd when he went out of the race because of that coming together with Teo Fabi, and he has coolly set about catching up time and distance after he came out of the pits, is now in 6th position, and I suspect could well finish higher up. This is lap 52 out of 63. And Piquet is now 5 seconds behind Mansell. Senna on his own. There he is in the background. Now, the battle between Mansell 2nd, Piquet 3rd, Prost 4th, and Boutsen 5th is being approached by the man you're looking at, Ayrton Senna. It's quite conceivable that Senna is going to be up with Gerhard Berger in 5th position, and it'll be interesting to see what the Brazilian's tactics are, whether he decides not to risk anything, having got a full lap ahead of the people who are nearest to him, or whether he will try to maintain his rhythm unbroken by carving his way through and lapping virtually everybody. He's got time to do it. This is lap 52 he's on now. It's a 63-lap race. And I do wish we could look at something other than Senna at the moment, because I can tell you that Mansell 2nd and Piquet 3rd are absolutely together, and there's a danger that we're going to miss seeing Nelson Piquet take 2nd place off his English teammate Nigel Mansell. So let's all get together and will that the picture show us Mansell and Piquet. Not Senna, much as I admire his driving talent. Senna leads. There's Cheever in 6th position, who is shortly going to be lapped by Ayrton Senna.
Yes, it really is a great shame. Of course, we have no control over what the director gives us. There's nothing we can do about it. But it really is a pity that we've had a pretty instant-packed race, and the director has done his best to avoid showing us any of the incidents or excitements.
Nevertheless, watching Ayrton Senna is an education. This young man has got such an old tactical head on his young shoulders. His maturity is incredible, although, of course, he has been driving competitively for 18 of his 27 years. He started in karts in Brazil, and now we've got it. Look at that. That is Mansell, and ahead of him is the McLaren.
Yes, so Piquet and Prost have passed Mansell. We just got on it a bit too late. But there we are. So Nigel obviously in some sort of mechanical trouble. He'll be just trying to hang on for a points finish. So that moves Nelson Piquet all the way back through the field to 2nd place. Nothing he can do about Senna now. And he's still got Prost behind him, but he looks to be the dominant one of the pair.
I said Favre had retired some time ago. Well, he's back in the pits doing his usual mobile chicane act in the AJS. He's just been lapped for about the 7th time by Nelson Piquet, who is now in 2nd position. Race order, lap 55 out of 63. Senna still out on his own. Number 6, Nelson Piquet in the Williams Honda is now 2nd, and Prost is now 3rd, both of them having passed Nigel Mansell, who has gone down from 2nd to 4th. In 5th position, it's still Berger, who may still yet catch and pass Nigel Mansell. And in 6th place is Eddie Cheever, who is shortly to be lapped, I think, by race leader Ayrton Senna. But Piquet, who was 2nd at Monaco, where he lives but doesn't particularly like racing, is now 2nd at Detroit, where he certainly doesn't like racing. So Nelson Piquet, fully recovered from his appalling San Marino Grand Prix crash at Imola, is driving magnificently. He's in 4th position in the World Championship. He will pass Stefan Johansson, who is 3rd in the World Championship, if he finishes Piquet in 2nd position. And of course, Ayrton Senna will be in the lead in the World Championship if he finishes this race in 1st position. He's now on his 55th lap. And the only question mark in my mind now, knowing that Piquet has changed his tyres and has therefore got less wear on his 4 good years than Senna has, will be able to catch his fellow Brazilian, Senna. There he is, if Senna does decide to come in for tyres. But he's left it so late that I can't believe that at this stage of the race, Ayrton Senna is going to come in for tyres. Well, he's certainly not done it on that lap. He has just completed his 55th lap. He still hasn't caught, let alone passed, Eddie Cheever. And I'm confident in my mind that Ayrton Senna, thanks to the car-to-pits radio, knows exactly what the situation and the gap between himself as Boutsen comes into the pits again with a puncture, I suspect. Yes, the right rear has a puncture. Boutsen a right rear puncture, and he was in 8th position, 7th position behind Eddie Cheever. And it'll obviously be a long pit stop because they will have trouble getting the jack underneath the lifting point with that right rear tyre flat. And indeed it is. The seconds ticking away, coming up to 20 seconds now, and that these days, of course, is an appallingly long pit stop. I can tell you that Lotus are certainly not expecting Senna to come in to the pits for tyres, and if he does, Kenny Szymanski is going to have to do another quick double across the pit lane, because they are even sitting on the tyres now in the pit lane. So Senna has obviously given Peter Wall the message that everything is okay. You can see the tyres. Look, they look in perfect condition.
Into the tunnel. Tyres still look okay. Really short shifting now, you can hear that. He's shifting gear, not letting the engine rev at all. He's not taking any chances for that Honda engine. Mind you, this Honda engine in all 4 of these cars today have a new specification known as the GE2 step, which are revised combustion chambers, which give them better throttle response and fuel consumption, which certainly seems to work this afternoon.
Sounds like a dance, and in that case it would be a waltz for Ayrton Senna here today as he continues to lead, down for the finish shortly.
Mansell est à 8 secondes de Prost. Va-t-il essayer de revenir sur la McLaren? On va reprendre les écarts au prochain passage. Et une fois encore, la victoire va échapper à Nigel Mansell. Alors que Senna, lui, est sur le point de savourer une 6e victoire. La première, c'était au Portugal en 85, puis en Belgique la même année. L'an dernier, en Espagne et ici à Détroit. Cette année, Monaco. Et en principe, d'ici quelques instants, Détroit à nouveau.
And Gerhard Berger is now ahead of number 5, Nigel Mansell, who is therefore down into 5th position. We didn't see that one either, but Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari, the only one running, is now up into 4th position, lap 57. Senna leads convincingly, Piquet 2nd, Prost 3rd, Berger now 4th, Mansell that you look at is in 5th position, Cheever is 6th, and Nigel Mansell is struggling. He's working hard just to keep the car going round the circuit. He's going quick, but he's not going at real racing speed. Any views, James? He seems to be going down through the gearbox more times than he need to.
Yes, well, the only thing I suspect, he may have got a broken turbocharger, because it looks as if he's a bit down on power. But of course, one can only speculate. It is very difficult to tell from anywhere except in the car, unless it's something actually hanging off it. But he certainly has had to slow right down. There's Senna again, both in the car and his photo. And Senna really can slow it right up now. Lead of around a minute, only a few laps to go, so he'll now just be nursing everything to the finish. In Monaco he was slowing it right down, and then we were rather surprised when he suddenly put in a couple of absolutely blistering laps towards the end of the race, and I saw the hand come up then, but I don't know what that means.
I do. This shows how cool and alert Senna is. He saw the camera there and he was literally waving to the camera as he went past. So he is obviously very, very happy indeed. At Monaco, in the closing stages, he was going, I was going to say berserk with excitement. That's an exaggeration, but he was getting very, very excited indeed inside his helmet. And he was shouting out over the car to pits radio to Peter Waugh and everybody else on the Lotus Radio network. We're going to win this race. It's easy. It's easy. I can't believe I'm going to win at Monaco. But he did, and he could well be doing the same thing again. We've just had a message from the Lotus, from the Williams pits. If you look at Mansell, I did notice this earlier on, his head is lolling about as he goes round the corners and as he changes gear. Mansell is tremendously fit. He's, if not the fittest man in Grand Prix racing, he's certainly as fit as anybody. But there's just a possibility that he's not feeling well. Maybe he's got vertigo. Maybe something else is troubling him. I'm only guessing, but there is a message certainly which says that all is not well with Mansell as opposed to the car. But there is Alain Prost in 3rd position. This is lap 58. Senna is still leading. He's only got 5 laps to go now, hasn't he? 4 laps to go, including this one, and there is Prost. That is Piquet, and that is the gap between the 2nd and 3rd men.
Yes, Prost, I'm sure, is making a late bid to see if he can snatch that 2nd place from Nelson Piquet, but he'll have to get on with it, because we've seen how difficult overtaking is round here. We saw that earlier in the race, and the Williams is a mighty good car, so I don't think Prost has a very serious chance unless he can force an error out of Piquet. Remember, of course, that everybody's very, very tired by now. An error or possibly a little mechanical hiccup. But he's certainly keeping the pressure on right to the end to try and force some problem.
And Senna shaping up to pass the wandering Pascal Fabre again, which he does. Heaves a sigh of relief, and that's another problem postponed for a few laps. I should think even Senna will be hard put to catch and pass the 3.5-litre AGS yet again. And in fairness to Fabre, I should point out that he's actually third and in the Jim Clark 3.5-litre drivers category, and AGS are second, because he has been consistently reliable and has finished in every race so far. He finished 7 laps. Hello, the Brazilians are here, and they're here celebrating already a victory for Ayrton Senna and a second place for his countryman, fellow Brazilian Nelson Piquet. That was Piquet. This is Ayrton Senna coming through to complete lap 60. 3 laps to go when he crosses the line. Which he does. Now, there goes Ayrton Senna across the line, very, very convincingly, leading the Detroit Grand Prix. Just a sign of wear now, I notice, on the left front. But Piquet will be keeping a very careful eye on that. It's dancing about in front of him.
Yes, we wouldn't mind having an eye on the battle for second, with Prost making a late bid to try and snatch second place from Nelson Piquet, and we're unfortunately watching the wrong place again.
I told you how much of a thinker Alain Prost is, and I have little doubt that what he's saying to himself now is that at the present moment, Nelson Piquet looks like taking 5 World Championship points more than I do, because there are 9 points for a win, which Senna is shaping up for now. There are 4 points for a third place, which Prost is on his way to at the moment. And Prost will doubtless be saying to himself, if I can get ahead of Piquet, those 5 points will come down to 3 points. And if Prost stays in third place and Senna wins, Senna will be leading the World Championship, whereas if Prost can get up to second place, Senna and Prost would be tying for the lead in the World Championship. And there is Senna. He is all into the tunnel yet again to complete his 61st lap. And he'll be taking, that's where Alio took Brundle off in a previous Detroit Grand Prix, and it's a very tricky place indeed to try to pass. Meantime, there goes Senna, and there is Mansell ahead of him. So Senna is going to have the exquisite experience to him of lapping his bitter rival Nigel Mansell, which he has just done. Mansell in 5th position, and he'll stay in 5th position provided he can keep going, because Eddie Cheever has been lapped twice, primarily because he had to come into the pits early on. So Nigel Mansell just has to keep going, and he won't have to go the full race distance, of course. He will only have to do 62 laps. He has already been lapped by Ayrton Senna, number 12 in the Yellow Lotus Honda, who is almost home to his 2nd successive Grand Prix victory. And there is Prost lapping René Arnoux. Now, where is Nelson Piquet? Can we see the Williams?
He was about 6 seconds in front. He's just got enough of a gap on Prost to be semi-comfortable. He's got breathing right down his neck as we turn to the leader, Ayrton Senna, who's at long last slowed it down. He's letting the gap come back, but then he's got plenty of gap to be playing with.
Yes, because he is shortly going to be starting his last lap. As you look at Nelson Piquet in 2nd position, Ayrton Senna just going through to start his 62nd, finish his 62nd lap. There's his fellow countryman, Brazilian Nelson Piquet, world champion in 1981, world champion in 93, both years with Brabham. There is Senna. So he is into turn 1 and turn 2, 62 laps completed on his 63rd and last lap. A quite incredible drive, because he is still on the same set of tyres that he started with.
Yes, really was a marvellous drive by Ayrton Senna, and I've frequently in the past been a critic of his tactics and maturity in the car, but I had to say this showed a great deal of maturity, because he looked after his tyres the first third of the race, made sure that they had enough rubber off them to be tougher, more durable, and then he really went for it, and he dominated from half distance onwards. Nigel Mansell's obviously in some sort of trouble. We don't know what it was. He's dropped right back, but this was definitely Ayrton Senna's day.
Yes, not only to win the Detroit Grand Prix and the second successive Grand Prix, both of them street races, but in the process to move into the lead in the World Championship, 2 points ahead of Alain Prost, assuming that they finish where they are at the present moment. There are the Lotus and Honda technicians waiting anxiously and eagerly to greet their man home, which they can do any moment now, because he is into the tunnel for the last time, out of the tunnel for the last time, into turn 16. They'll see him shortly, and Ayrton Senna from Brazil has driven an absolutely immaculate race, has proved the superiority of the Lotus active suspension again. Johansson slows down to avoid having to do another lap, and the Detroit Grand Prix of 1987 has been magnificently won, to the delight of the Brazilians here in Detroit, by Ayrton Senna in the Lotus Honda. He's got the same set of tyres as he started with. There is Nigel Mansell finishing in 5th position, and so, as usual, subject to official confirmation, victory for Ayrton Senna. In 2nd position, Nelson Piquet. In 3rd position, Alain Prost. And Piquet's doing here what he did last year. He's driving round with the flag of Brazil, because this is now 2 successive victories, not only this year, but also at Detroit, because Senna won here in the Lotus Renault last year. He's won here this year in the Lotus Honda. A superb achievement, and in doing so, he has run up his 6th Grand Prix victory. A win for Ayrton Senna, 2nd for Nelson Piquet, 3rd for Alain Prost, 4th for Gerhard Berger. In 5th position, it's Nigel Mansell, and in an excellent 6th position, it is Eddie Cheever. And that means to say that Ayrton Senna leads the World Championship by 2 points. Prost is in 2nd place, Piquet is in 3rd, down to 4th goes Johansson, Mansell is 5th, and Berger is 6th. The Constructors' Championship still led by McLaren, but only now 5 points ahead of Williams, with Lotus 3 points behind Williams in 3rd position and Ferrari in 4th place.
Nous avons donc 2 moteurs Honda, celui de la Lotus et celui de la Williams, pour ce nouveau doublé brésilien. 3 semaines après le doublé brésilien de Monaco, nouveau doublé brésilien ici à Détroit. 3e Alain Prost sur la McLaren Task Force, qui fait tout de même une brillante opération. 4e Gerhard Berger sur la Ferrari, qui confirme, si besoin était, la bonne santé actuelle. Il termine dans le même tour et c'est à relever. 5e Nigel Mansell, qui une nouvelle fois a joué de malchance au volant de sa Williams Honda. Et 6e Eddie Cheever au volant de la Arrows Megatron. On trouve plus loin 7e Johansson, qui est bien remonté mais qui est à 3 tours. 8e Danner, 9e Patrese, 10e Arnoux, 11e Palmer et 12e Fabre. Alors qu'au championnat du monde, nous allons faire le décompte avant de rendre l'antenne d'ici quelques instants. Nous avons Ayrton Senna qui prend la tête du championnat du monde avec 27 points, avec 24 points, pardon. En 2e position, nous avons Prost avec 22 points, 2 points d'écart entre Senna et Prost. En 3e position, Piquet passe à 18 points. La situation est extrêmement serrée. En 4e position, nous avons Johansson qui reste à ses 13 points, alors que Mansell, lui, passe de 10 à 12 points. Voilà en ce qui concerne ce Grand Prix des États-Unis à Détroit. Nous allons maintenant rendre l'antenne. Merci, mesdames et messieurs, d'être resté avec nous en ce dimanche soir. On espère que le spectacle vous a plu, avec en prime le portrait de Ayrton Senna. Rendez-vous dans 15 jours pour le Grand Prix de France qui se courra sur le circuit du Castellet à une heure toute différente, puisque ce sera à 13h l'après-midi que nous nous retrouverons pour la 6e épreuve de ce championnat du monde de Formule 1. Ici Jacques Deschenaux qui vous parlait en direct de Détroit. Bonne fin de soirée, bonne nuit à tous. Ici Détroit, à vous Genève.
Okay, we can go Senna now if you want. Congratulations. Thank you. Yes, I am.
Gentle rain is now falling just in the final moments as they came across the line here in Detroit. Ayrton Senna is now at the scales with his car. He's holding up his flag. He's out of the car for the first time. Let's go to Dave Despain quickly.
So now the rain falls, but it certainly won't spoil Ayrton Senna's parade. Peter Ward, team manager, you didn't want to talk late in the race, but you obviously had things well in command.
Well, he had things well in command. I think he sprung a surprise on all of us today by not stopping to change for tires. And boy, did the guy drive a fantastic race, because even at the end, he was still putting in fast lap times, lap after lap.
You had not talked about the possibility of going the whole distance.
No. I think he snuck up on us through that one.
He's also given you a rather nice birthday present, eh?
He has indeed. Much nicer than the last one.
Are you admitting to any age here? I know you've been around this Formula One business a long time.
No, but next year's got to be the big 5-0.
No one has ever won this race twice in a row. Senna has not only won it, he has absolutely scorched him. As you came here and watched Mansell run so strong through the qualifying, did you feel good about this event? Did you think you had what you needed when the time came?
Well, Ayrton said that he didn't think he could match Mansell's time in qualifying, so he spent the second half of the last qualifying session setting the car up for the race on full tanks, and he was as similarly quietly confident to the way he was in Monaco, so we didn't speak a lot, but we felt that he might have it under control.
Peter, our congratulations. We're going to hear from your driver now. Let's go to Chris Economaki in Victory Lane.
Well, fine. We're here with a happy winner. Congratulations, Ayrton Senna. You surprised everybody when you didn't stop for tires. When did you make up your mind not to get tired?
Sometime during the race.
Ah, come on, tell us about it.
Well, you had to take in consideration the pace of the race, the others of my own car, and make a decision by halfway through. And I decided to go. I decided to go for it because at the beginning of the race I took it very easy on the tires because I had some brake problems. That was when I just started to pull away. My brakes started to go down, so I had to slow down a lot, and automatically I saved the tires. So I had the tires to go then the race distance.
You were 20 seconds down at one point. Were you worried then?
You are always worried. You never know, but you just go for it.
Now, what about the active suspension, Ayrton? Did it work fine, obviously, huh?
Yeah, it was good, and no problem. And the car worked very well. The only problem were the brakes. I had the pedal going down sometimes, and that was my only worry. And then also the tires, because we were not sure whether they could run the whole distance without blowing or having a problem just by wear, because we were supposed to stop. Nobody knew I was going for it. I was the only one. So I was worried because the tires were not done for the full race distance, but they worked fantastic. I had no problem. They worked very well, and I could do the whole race distance with no problem.
Well, okay, Goodyear said the tires would last to the end of the race, but they would be very slippery and hard to control. Did you have difficulty towards the end?
I didn't have to push anymore. I was so far ahead that I could afford to take it easy. So that, of course, was the key on the pocket. Be able to take it easy towards the end.
Okay, thank you very much, and congratulations. One last question. Where'd the flag come from?
Almost the same spot from last year. Somebody that was cheering up there during the race was there with the flag. I stopped again.
Many Brazilians have flag. Okay, now we have with us the other finisher back over here. There's Alain Prost in third place. A nice drive for you, Alain. Are you happy with finishing third?
Yeah, very happy. I think I could not expect much more. The handling of my car was much better than during the practice, but I had a typical problem for Detroit: brakes and tires and also gearbox. and could have pushed a little bit harder at the end, but I was so happy to finish third that we prefer to keep it.
Congratulations. Nelson, a fantastic drive, a flat tire, you're dead last, and you come back to finish second. Have you ever raced harder?
Yes, some other place, yeah. I didn't know if the tires go last. What I done is I took very easy in the beginning because I have to overtake a lot of people. I didn't have much wheel spin, and in the end I give a very strong, but the problem is I took it too easy in the beginning. I should go hard from the beginning to the end.
If you had not had the flat tire, could you have won it, Nelson?
It's very difficult to say these things, you know. It's if is it's impossible to say. Many races I didn't win because of something, but for me it was a good result. I don't like this kind of circuit, slow circuit. I prefer the quick ones, and I wait for when the championship starts in Europe.
You'll sleep tonight, right?
Yes.
Right, okay, thank you very much, Nelson Piquet. And let's go now to Ken Squire topside.
It's a new record of 85.697 miles per hour, David. 1 hour, 15 minutes, 16 seconds by which they decided this event.
And they didn't stop a second too soon, because here comes the rain, and they just got away with a perfectly dry race. But I think Ayrton Senna underlined today just what a thinking man he is. No tyre stop for him, no tyre stop for Nelson Piquet, who also must be feeling very good. He's been demoralised by his teammate Nigel Mansell the last half a season or so, and I think today would have given him a lot of help coming second, a good second. Not just a good race for Alain Prost, and he's still only level pegging with Jackie Stewart. That 28th win's yet to come.
26 starters today, 14 cars were running at the finish of the event. David, were you surprised this many cars came across the line? This is the track that usually just devours equipment.
The attrition wasn't as bad as I thought it might be. There was not very many crashes, certainly no bad ones, and as you say, it was quite a high finishing rate, because this is very tough, especially on transmissions, drive shafts, and this sort of thing. We obviously had the thing here at the chicane when the wheel came off Philip Streif's car, which was pretty unfortunate, and I'm very sorry about that first lap accident between Fabi and Cheever, because I think that took out two really good runners, and obviously I was sorry to see my friend Thierry Boutsen not finish either.
We'll have a resume on the event shortly, but for the moment, let's move on to boxing, which is coming up on CBS later today. We're going to Atlantic City for the moment. Here's Tim Ryan. Repeat winner here comes across the line for the Lotus Honda team. Nelson Piquet for Williams Honda is second. Then Prost finishes in third. The fourth position was Gerhard Berger, and Nigel Mansell was fifth. Now let's take a look at the second five. Rounding out the point-scoring drivers today, Eddie Cheever was sixth. Johansson gets credit for seventh. Christian Donner is eighth. Patrese is ninth. And René Arnoux comes across in 10th position. Well, those were the top 10 here this afternoon in Detroit.
Well, I think we saw some good shows this afternoon. Eddie Cheever's car looked very strong all day. It was a pity that Warwick, I think he probably clipped the wall somewhere. We saw him coming with that wheel deranged. Cheever definitely would have been, I'm sure, in the top 3 or 4 if he hadn't had that stop. Fabi and Boutsen were both going very well in the Benetton Fords, and I'm looking for them to do very well as the season progresses.
Eddie Cheever had a terrific finish today, and Dave Despain is with him now.
These are the hands of the 6th place finisher in this race. Eddie Cheever worked for that spot here today. Blisters all over, a tough racetrack to drive, Eddie.
Very tough racetrack. I was extremely disappointed that Fabi made the mistake he made. I mean, I'm not blaming, everybody makes mistakes, but I was already committed to the corner. There's no place I could go. He just ran at the back of me. Without that, I think I would have finished in the first 3.
That was the consensus in the booth moments ago, that you drove a brilliant race. It ended on a strange note. You didn't make it to the finish. What happened there?
I made it to the finish, but I had to run at such a high boost level the whole way to pick up time that I ran out of gas. There's something wrong with my computer. It stole 2 last minute, but my USF&G arrows ran very good today. We made it to the end of the race. It's a great disappointment only to finish 6th. I think that in the future, if they are as ambitious as I am, I'm sure USF&G can give us that extra push to get right up there in the end. And I'm sure they are as ambitious as we are, and I think we can go a long way together.
The consensus coming into this race was that this is the team that has improved most coming into this season. This guy gave their car a drive worth remembering here this afternoon. Congratulations, Eddie. Let's go back to Ken Squire.
To celebrate Ayrton Senna victory here, #1 in the world points.
Yes, he's had 2 great wins in the streets of Monaco and here at Detroit with 85-mile-an-hour averages. How are they going to look in 3 weeks' time when they go to the open fields of Silverstone at 160 miles an hour? They look pretty good this afternoon, but those Williams looked good at Silverstone 2 years ago, and I think that Mr. Prost is going to look pretty good from now on too.
So that's the story from Detroit this afternoon for David Hobbs and Chris Economaki and Dave Despain. This is Ken Squire saying so long from the 1987 Detroit Grand Prix, where the winner is Brazil's Ayrton Senna. The 1987 Detroit Grand Prix has been a presentation of CBS Sports. Ayrton Senna, the winner.
And there the results show that it's Senna and Piquet and Prost the first three, with Berger fourth, Nigel Mansell a disappointed fifth, and Eddie Cheever 3 laps behind the leader, sixth.
Was it a decision beforehand to go all the way through?
It was during the race.
Yeah. And as you say, you had some problems with the tyres at the end or not?
No, the tyres were good. They were good right to the end. The problems were with the brakes. The brake pedal started to go soft at the beginning. Then I had to do many laps slow to bring them back. Then I start to go again, and then they start to have just a feeling of going away again. I had to slow down again. I was playing with the brakes, and as I was playing with the brakes early in the race, I saved the tires. And when I saved the tires, then I thought I probably don't have to stop because I was not pushing at the beginning. So I carry on, I need to work.
Was the active suspension a great boost, do you think?
Of course, the whole car was working well. The engine and the suspension, everything was working good.
I have only a flat tire the third lap, and I came in, I got a lot of understeer, and after that, nothing. The car was perfect. It was very difficult to overtake all these slow cars, but the car works fantastic, and I was sorry that I could not fight for the leaders.
No problems with brakes?
No problem.
And the tyres, I mean, you had the same set of tyres for a long time then. How did they last?
Well, I did 60 laps with the tyres, only 3 laps with the first set. The tyre was brand new in the end.
Fantastic.
It was very good. Goodyear did a fantastic job.
I had some problems, but I think everybody had some problems during this race. It's very difficult. I had a brakes problem at the beginning of the race behind Boutsen and Alboreto. I've tried to overtake them, and it was very difficult. The pedal was long all the time, and during the whole race I had a problem when I tried to push hard. And as soon as I wanted to put some boost up and try to push, I had a problem with the gearbox. Third to fourth, fourth to fifth, I missed maybe 2 or 3 times per lap. And at the end, I'm sure I was able to catch Nelson, but honestly I was tired and I wanted to stay third because I was afraid to miss a gear and to break the engine or miss the braking point.
So you're pretty happy with third?
Pretty happy, yeah. Pretty happy for my team. We had a difficult weekend, and being third in this race and being almost as quick and as competitive than the other cars, I think it's a good result. So now the championship starts after Detroit.
Yes, after the round the houses races of Monaco and Detroit, it all gets a bit faster, starting with the French Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time. But Alain Prost has lost the lead in the World Championship. Ayrton Senna now the leader by just 2 points from Prost, with Nelson Piquet third, another 4 points behind, Stefan Johansson fourth, Nigel Mansell still fifth, and Gerhard Berger now sixth. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren have just 5 points lead now over Williams Honda, with Lotus only a further 3 points down. So that's all getting very close too. Just 2 weeks to go before that race in Paul Ricard, the French Grand Prix, so it's all back to Europe for the Formula One circus. Join us in France in 2 weeks' time.